Chapter 3094. Yu Shui waved his hand. Sacred Lord Luan Zhuan's body flew into his hand. His consciousness entered Sacred Lord Luan Zhuan's body and found that his soul had been devoured. Naturally, he could not find any clues from his memories. Yu Shui continued to grab the bodies of other 6 paths heaven cultivators and foreign race cultivators. The result was the same. A dim light flashed in Yu Shui's eyes. He snorted. The million-strong army has probably been killed. The gray fog figure trembled. Could it be Daozu of the human race? Only Daozu could wipe out the million-strong army. It seems like these useless human cultivators of the 6 paths heaven were tricked by the Western Mystery Mountain. Daozu of the human race personally set a trap here, causing the million-strong vanguard army to be wiped out. It seems like this is the only way. I was attacked by a human expert when I was just teleported here from the Sacred Gate. It was a soul attack. I had no choice but to lose some of my soul energy in order to escape the calamity, Yu Shui said faintly. Then he kept all the corpses. He did this because he did not want the gray fog figure to find any clues from the corpses. What kind of treasure was the longevity lamp? Of course, Yu Shui wanted to keep the longevity lamp for himself. He would not let the other experts know that the longevity lamp had appeared in the hands of a human Dao Void cultivator. I have to report this to the higher-ups. Yu Shui, you have to think carefully about how to explain this to them. Yu Shui, the higher-ups will definitely be furious. You will not be able to escape punishment this time. A cold voice came from the gray fog. Then, the gray fog rolled and floated into the huge blood gate, disappearing without a trace. As long as I get the longevity lamp, what is the loss of half of my soul and some punishment? Human brat, I have already grasped your aura. Even if you escape to the outer realm chaos, I will catch you. Yu Shui muttered to himself coldly. Then, a black cloud surged out from under the cloak. It quickly condensed into a group of black beetles that looked like ants. With a swoosh, they flew in all directions. Qing Yu used his innate ability to travel through the inner realm chaos void. About 10 years later, only when Qing Yu's demonic power was almost exhausted did he stop. He sensed that Su Fong in his stomach was still in a state of deep sleep and showed no signs of waking up. We're in big trouble now. Let's find a place to hide first. Qing Yu was worried about Su Fong. They flew for another 3 months. Qing Yu found an area of floating ruins in the chaos void of the domain. In the ruins, Qing Yu discovered the lair of a group of golden-furred weasels. The golden-furred weasel was not a particularly powerful monster. In terms of strength, it was at most at the level of a Dao Lord. However, the golden-haired demonic weasel had a very special ability. The golden-haired weasel demon was able to emit an incomparably pungent odor, which was unbearable for cultivators and big goblin at the divine saint level. Even if they sealed off their sense of smell, it was useless. Therefore, very few cultivators and big goblins would dare to provoke the golden-haired weasel demon. Qing Yu had chosen such a place to hide because he wanted to be careful and avoid being hunted down by the outsiders. Qing Yu did not kill the golden-furred weasel demon. This way, the golden-furred weasel demon's stench could mask his demonic qi and escape from being hunted down. After the golden-furred weasel demon's stench, Qing Yu could only endure it. No matter how smelly it was better than losing his life. What Qing Yu did not know was that it was precisely because of his caution that he and Su Fong managed to escape a calamity. Less than 10 years after he hid in the golden-furred weasel demon's lair, more than 10 black beetles arrived at the ruins of the lair. These black beetles were the ones that Yu Shui used to track down Su Fong. In the 6 paths of heaven, although these black beetles did not discover Su Fong's aura, they sensed Qing Yu's residual demonic qi and chased him all the way here. The black beetles' sense of smell was extremely astonishing. They were also very sensitive to the golden-furred weasel demon's stench. They did not dare to approach the lair and were forced to leave in the end. However, Su Fong remained in a deep sleep. Qing Yu did not have any better ideas and could only wait for him to wake up. Although Su Fong had lost his consciousness, the longevity lamp continued to refine the pure soul power and continuously seep into his injured soul. About 1,000 years later, Su Fong finally regained consciousness. "You little brat, you really scare me to death." Qing Yu could finally heave a long sigh of relief. "Brother Qing Yu, I've made you worry. Now you can go and recover in peace." Seeing Qing Yu's weak aura and the worry in his eyes, Su Fong's heart was filled with waves of warmth. After transcending the Pan-Song universe, Su Fong's speed of improvement was astonishing. He had quickly distanced himself from Qing Yu, Bai Ling, and the other big goblin. However, the familial relationship that they had built since the Pan-Song universe had not been diluted by the difference in power. He sent Qing Yu into Fu Yao's cave abode and took out the corpse of a divine saint of a foreign race for Qing Yu to devour. Fusing with the longevity lamp means that my soul will not be extinguished. In addition, I have a strong Tao heart and will. It is normal for me to recover so quickly. The intense pain of his soul being burned still existed. Su Fong could not even gather his thoughts and felt waves of fear. He did not dare to use the longevity lamp so easily in the future. Then, he entered Fu Yao's cave abode and sat cross-legged in the formation of time. As he absorbed the soul power in the longevity lamp, he swallowed pills to recover. After spending nearly 100,000 years in Fu Yao's cave abode, Su Fong's soul had finally completely recovered. He was also completely free from the terrible pain of his soul being burned. His cultivation had also recovered to its peak state. Next, it was time to digest what he had gained in the 6 paths of heaven. This time, the foreign race colluded with the cultivators of the 6 paths of heaven and tried to enter the Western mystic divine domain through the 6 paths of heaven. After suffering such a heavy blow, they will definitely not be satisfied. They have probably already begun to invade the Western mystic divine domain. With my current strength, although I can kill ordinary Tao saints, my strength is far from enough to face a true expert. An individual's strength is insignificant in the invasion of the foreign race. Even if I return to the Western Mystic Mountain now, I will not be of much use. Now, I can only increase my strength as quickly as possible and convert the various resources I gained in the 6 paths of heaven into my true strength. After some thought, Su Fong decided to continue staying here. He wanted to use his gains in the 6 paths of heaven to reach the upper Tao Void realm as soon as possible and increase his strength and various abilities. The gains this time were simply too shocking. It was not something that could be completely digested in a short period of time. Su Fong first separated his thoughts and searched the corpses of the foreign race cultivators. The results shocked Su Fong. There were more than 1 million foreign race cultivators' corpses. Including the strongest 3-headed monster, there were 6 foreign race experts who were comparable to Tao saints. This did not include Leader Tian Coffin. There are also more than 3,000 foreign race experts of the Tao Void realm. The rest were all below the Tao Void realm. With so many foreign race corpses, it was a shocking amount of resources. Furthermore, Su Fong collected countless treasures and resources from the corpses. They formed a vast ocean in the Tao Palace. Most of these treasures and resources were obtained after the foreign race invaded the demon race in the southern mystic divine domain. There are also several king-grade treasures. Su Fong estimated that the treasures collected from the corpses alone surpassed the top forces of the divine domain, like the 3 highest profound sects and the Luo Shao Sword sect. It should be known that these forces had accumulated for countless years to have such a deep foundation. However, Su Fong alone possessed wealth that surpassed the top forces. It could be said that he had become rich overnight. Su Fong did not stand on ceremony. He took out all kinds of treasures and let the cultivators and Big Goblin under his command choose to their heart's content. He also distributed a large amount of other resources to each of them so that they could increase their strength as quickly as possible. He also picked out the foreign race treasures that the human cultivators and Big Goblin could not use and gave them all to the heavenly devouring insect. The heavenly devouring insect was a glutton. It ate as much as it could and could even spit out the primordial energy. Su Fong urgently needed to increase his strength now. Of course, he would not feel sorry for the foreign race treasures that he could not use. He also gave Gue a large number of foreign race corpses so that she could increase her strength quickly. There were also countless spiritual items and elixirs that Su Fong used to increase the strength of his various spell bodies. As he could not cultivate in the Fuyao cave abode, Su Fong flew out of the Fuyao cave abode and set up a formation to cultivate in a ruin far away from the golden-haired weasel demon's nest. Besides comprehending the time mirage and cultivating the Jiuxuan Wuji Sutra, he also cultivated the heavenly secret life shrinking spell, heavenly mystery solution, my lord's 10-direction seal, formless heavenly wheels, and other supreme abhijna. At the same time, his physical body urged the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine to devour the life essence and energy of the foreign race corpses. He used this to increase his Tao palace and physical body, as well as the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine at the same time. There is also an extremely important matter, which was to fuse with the Blood Coffin leader's blood coffin. Grabbing the blood coffin from the Tao palace, Su Fong's eyes became very energetic. The heavenly coffin leader's soul had been devoured by the longevity lamp. This powerful blood coffin had become an object without an owner. Su Fong's thoughts seeped into the blood coffin easily. There was another world inside the blood coffin. It was a vast blood-red space. A corpse floated in the center. It was the refined corpse of the heavenly coffin leader. The refined corpse's origin was unknown. Not only was its body extremely strong, it also cultivated a physical body. It also used the blood coffin to cultivate 9 spell bodies, which could use 9 different sealing abilities. The heavenly coffin leader's physical body had already perished in the 6 paths of samsara formation. The refined corpse had lost its soul and became a corpse. However, Su Fong did not care about this. What he cared about most was this blood coffin. If I can form a spell body with this blood coffin, I will have 9 powerful spell bodies together with the Blood Fury spell body. Su Fong was full of anticipation for this blood coffin. Once he cultivated 9 spell bodies, it would be very beneficial to Su Fong. By then, not only would he have powerful spell bodies, but he would also be able to use powerful sealing abilities. Chapter 3095. Next, Su Fong began to peel off his blood and seep it into the blood coffin to fuse with it. Sizzle, the blood coffin was like a bloodthirsty monster. As soon as Su Fong's blood seeped into the blood coffin, it was immediately devoured. Su Fong never thought that fusing with the blood coffin would require a large amount of blood. Let's see how much blood you can suck. Su Fong kept peeling off his blood and fusing it into the blood coffin. What shocked and helpless Su Fong was that in the end, he used up almost a third of his blood and finally seeped into every corner of the blood coffin. It was also thanks to Su Fong's boundless vitality and blood chi that he could recover quickly. Otherwise, the blood coffin alone would have sucked him dry. No wonder the leader and young master of the heavenly coffin are like refined corpses. Su Fong guessed that the leader and young master of the heavenly coffin were probably human cultivators in the past. It was because the blood coffin had sucked their blood dry that they became refined corpses, that they became neither human nor ghost. As for their physical bodies, it was obvious that they had obtained them through cultivation later on. After the blood coffin was full of Su Fong's blood, its aura became even more powerful than when it was in the hands of the leader. It was probably because Su Fong's vitality and blood chi were far greater than the leader's. After the blood seeped into and fused with the blood coffin, Su Fong felt like he had become one with the blood coffin. The blood coffin was a part of his body, just like his limbs. With a thought, he could spread his consciousness to every corner of the blood coffin. However, he was still far from being able to cultivate a Dharmakaya. He still had to master the formations and restrictions in the blood coffin. Only then could he activate the blood coffin and release its extraordinary power. The blood coffin was bitten by the heavenly swallowing insect. Su Fong happened to have the blood coffin of the young master of the heavenly coffin. It was useless to leave it there, so he could use it to patch up the hole in the coffin. The blood coffin of the young master of the heavenly coffin was also very hard. However, the blood coffin of the leader was of a higher grade. It should be called a heavenly coffin. It easily fused with the blood coffin as if it had swallowed it. Not only did it patch up the hole, but the heavenly coffin's aura became even more shocking. Next, Su Fong sucked the heavenly coffin into his holy Ji palace. He concentrated his thoughts and took control of the formations and restrictions within the heavenly coffin. I even captured a Tao Saint expert of the alien race. Coincidentally, I lack powerful experts at the Tao Saint level. If I can recruit him, it will be of great help when dealing with the alien race. One of Su Fong's thoughts entered the depths of the Holy Ji Palace, arriving at the shackled space where the cultivator of the foreign race had almost been destroyed by him. That Tao Saint looked very similar to the wolf demon, but he had a tail like a python. His aura was comparable to that of an ordinary Tao Saint of the human race. However, his true strength was comparable to that of a middle-level Tao Saint. His strength was indeed extraordinary. This alien race Tao Saint was unlucky. When he clashed with Su Fong, due to underestimating him, he was restrained by Su Fong's heaven-piercing Blood King Vine and was beaten up by Su Fong. He was also lucky. Otherwise, he would have ended up like the other alien race cultivators. His soul would have been swallowed by the longevity lamp, and he would have become a corpse by now. When he saw the figure formed by Su Fong's thoughts, the alien race Tao Saint bared his teeth. Evil fire burned in his eyes. He wanted to swallow Su Fong whole. However, his physical body was restrained by an extremely tough, heaven-piercing Blood King Vine. His body was also injured internally by Su Fong. How could he resist? I will give you two choices. You can either submit to me and become my slave, or you can only die, Su Fong's illusory figure said. Submit to a low-level life form like you? You are just a puny ant. You want me, a high-level life form, to submit to you? The alien race Tao Saint seemed to have heard the funniest thing in his life. He laughed maniacally without any restraint. I forgot to tell you. I have already killed the million-strong army that entered the 6 paths of heaven. You're the only survivor. Su Fong smiled coldly. Then, with a thought, he moved the alien race Tao Saint to the space where the alien race corpses were sealed. Seeing the sea of corpses, including the 3-headed monster, the alien race Tao Saint was stunned. He could not believe what he was seeing. Chi, 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 chi. Numerous blood vines appeared and wrapped around the corpses of the alien race Tao Saint. After a series of sizzling sounds, the corpses quickly turned into dried corpses. The most fragmented corpses were reduced to ashes. Su Fong said indifferently, I forgot to tell you just now. It is not that easy to die. I will let the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine suck you dry and turn you into a tool for my cultivation. The alien race Tao Saint started to feel fear and hesitation. However, it would not be so easy to make him submit. In the eyes of the alien race, the human race was a lowly life form. They were only fit to be slaves of the alien race. They were even used as food and cultivation tools. How could it be easy to make a Tao Saint of a foreign race submit to a human cultivator? In the end, the alien race Tao Saint gritted his teeth and shouted, I will not submit even if I die. Originally, I wanted to explain to you the benefits of submitting to me. Now, it seems like there is no need for that. Su Fong waved his hand, and countless treasures appeared. Some were from the alien race, some were from the alien race, and some were from the human race. Apart from cultivation resources, there were also many cultivation techniques of the alien race Tao Saint. The alien race Tao Saint's eyes suddenly brightened. However, Su Fong laughed coldly and wrapped a blood vine around the alien race Tao Saint. Countless strands of blood seeped into the alien race Tao Saint's body and started to crazily devour his life force and energy. Submit. I am willing to submit. The alien race Tao Saint was scared out of his wits. His soul trembled as he hurriedly begged for mercy. Su Fong kept the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine. Even the toughest heaven-piercing Blood King Vine was taken back by Su Fong. The alien race Tao Saint felt like he was about to collapse. His face was pale, and his entire body was trembling. What is your name? My name is Tu Xiao. Su Fong suddenly waved his hand and grabbed a ball of flames. This was not a flame formed from the divine might of flames. Instead, It was formed from the soul energy within the longevity lamp. TSK, TSK. Once the soul flame entered Tu Xiu's mind, he naturally would not be willing to be restrained like this. Once his soul was restrained, it meant that he would be at the mercy of Su Fong for the rest of his life. However, this ball of soul flame came from the longevity lamp. Even the alien race's half-step Daozu Yushui could not resist the power of the longevity lamp, much less Tu Xiu. At that moment, the ball of soul flame disappeared from Tu Xiu's mind and merged with his soul origin. It disappeared without a trace. Tu Xiu sighed helplessly and knelt down obediently in front of Su Fong. Tu Xiu greets Master. Even his soul source had been shackled. What else could he do but accept his fate? What Tu Xiu did not know was that Su Fong was not willing to use up his life force. Otherwise, he could have used the life-shrinking technique to plant the life-pulling karmic line and easily controlled him. Why would it be so troublesome? Hurry up and recover. In the future, when I still need you, I will ask you about the alien race. Su Fong took out a large amount of resources and even extracted life essence from the corpses of the alien race experts to help Tu Xiu recover. Thank you, Master. Tu Xiu was surprised and delighted. It seemed that submitting to Su Fong was not a bad thing. Just like that, Su Fong gained another alien race Dao Saint expert. Time flew by. Unknowingly, Su Fong had cultivated in the physical wasteland for 100,000 years. On this day, Su Fong, who was cultivating cross-legged, suddenly felt some movement in his body. Unexpectedly, the heaven-piercing Blood King vine actually started to tremble in his body. It was actually trying to drill out of his body uncontrollably. Su Fong sensed it and realized that the heaven-piercing Blood King vine had devoured countless alien race experts' corpses. After absorbing their life, essence, and energy, it had undergone a shocking change. Countless blood vessels covered every corner of Su Fong's body. They were no longer blood red like before. Instead, they were jet black. Every blood vessel contained a natural divine pattern. The heaven-piercing Blood King vine is actually evolving. Su Fong was surprised and delighted. Once the heaven-piercing Blood King vine successfully evolved again, even if it was not as strong as the main body, it would still evolve into a mature body. When that time came, how terrifying would the heaven-piercing Blood King vine be? He quickly urged the heaven-piercing Blood King vine to devour the alien race Dao Saints' corpses. The heaven-piercing Blood King vine required a shocking amount of life force to evolve. In less than 10 days, it had sucked the corpses of 4 alien race Dao Saints dry. After devouring so many alien race Dao Saints' essence, it was still difficult for the heaven-piercing Blood King vine to evolve. Su Fong only had the 3 Dao Saint-level alien race experts' corpses left. Next, the heaven-piercing Blood King vine continued to devour no less than 100,000 alien race cultivators' corpses. It even devoured the 3-headed monster's corpse. Su Fong could feel that the heaven-piercing Blood King vine was already at the peak of its breakthrough. However, it was still unable to evolve successfully. The heaven-piercing Blood King vine is a high-level life form. Compared to the heaven-piercing Blood King vine, these alien race life forms are considered low-level life forms. No matter how many of them there are, it is difficult for them to evolve. Only life forms that are of a higher level than the heaven-piercing Blood King vine can do it. Su Fong gritted his teeth and took out the remaining 1/3 of the alien race Daozu's blood. Only the alien race Daozu's blood could cause the heaven-piercing Blood King vine to evolve. Su Fong took out half of the remaining blood and let the heaven-piercing Blood King vine devour it. As expected by Su Fong, the heaven-piercing Blood King vine started to evolve after absorbing some of the Daozu's blood. Chi, chi, chi. The heaven-piercing Blood King vine expanded rapidly in Su Fong's body. Finally, it turned into blood vines and shot out from his body. Tens of thousands of blood vines that were as thick as an arm and black in color extended for tens of thousands of miles. They formed a huge sea of vines around Su Fong and sealed off the void. Su Fong looked like an evil monster in the center. The tens of thousands of blood vines were like his tentacles. It was a horrifying scene. Chi, 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 chi. Under Su Fang's control, the blood vines pierced into the void. They easily tore through the restraints of the void. Next, Su Fang activated the true Yang evil slaying sword and slashed at one of the blood vines. Boom! The sword radiance was repelled by the blood vines. However, the blood vines were not damaged at all. Chapter 3096. The heaven-piercing Blood King Vine's evolution is just in time. Su Fang absorbed the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine into his body and was overjoyed. Although the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine had not reached the height of its mother, it had reached adulthood. Su Fang estimated that with the help of the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine, he could kill a peerless expert in the middle realm of Dao Saint. The stronger the devouring ability of the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine, the faster it would help Su Fang to improve. When the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine merged with Su Fang's body, it made Su Fang's body stronger. He was not inferior to those powerful Dao Saints. After cultivating for so many years, the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine was not the only one that had undergone a transformation. After devouring countless treasures of the foreign tribes, the Heaven Devourer insect had also undergone a transformation. It had become close to 10 feet long, and its entire body was black with silver spots faintly appearing on it. Its aura had become even more brutal. Every 1,000 years or so, the Heaven Devourer insect would spit out silk. A portion of it would be absorbed by Su Fang, while the other portion would be absorbed by Su Fang. It made the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine as tough as the chaotic Godlock chain. In the depths of the vortex in Su Fang's Dao Palace, the grand mist aura that was formed from the heavenly devourer beetles had spat out threads was now nearly 30 meters wide. Not only had it increased in quantity, but its weight had also increased to a shocking level. Gue was currently in deep slumber in Su Fang's body after devouring a large amount of blood of the foreign tribe's experts. When he woke up, there would probably be another shocking transformation. The longevity lamp and heavenly coffin had also fused further. However, they could not be used as Dharmakaya for now. At most, they could only activate a portion of their power. In order to cultivate the longevity lamp and heavenly coffin into Dharmakaya, they still needed to be baptized by the heavenly tribulation. With the help of the heavenly tribulation, the two supreme treasures would completely fuse with Su Fang. Only then could they truly become a part of Su Fang. Over the years, the longevity lamp had been constantly providing pure soul energy to nourish Su Fang's soul, causing Su Fang's soul to grow stronger and stronger. Last time, when he activated the longevity lamp, he had devoured the souls of over 1 million non-humankind cultivators. The soul power generated from so many souls had all become nutrients for Su Fang's soul. How could his soul not be powerful? Su Fang's current origin soul was not truly immortal, but it was almost indestructible. There was no divine ability that could harm his soul. The heavenly coffin had also been completely integrated by Su Fang. He had mastered the formations, restrictions, and heavenly marks within it. He only needed to wait for the heavenly tribulation's baptism to become one of Su Fang's Dharmakaya bodies. Not only that, but Su Fang also merged with the soulless corpse and turned it into a puppet. Although it was not as strong as the previous leader, it was much stronger than normal Dao Saints. In this way, Su Fang had a second Dao Saint under his command. During this period, Su Fang had devoured countless pills and pure energy. Now he had gradually reached the peak of the middle level of the Dao Void Realm. Su Fang estimated that it would not be long before he could break through to the next level. Thus, he began to focus on breaking through to the upper level of the Dao Void Realm. About 300 years later, the tribulation chi in Su Fang's body came out with a huff and puff, followed by a burst of explosion. Suddenly, in an incomparably terrifying state, it turned into a burning tribulation fire. It continued to burn with a huff and huff, instantly enveloping him. Not long after, his body trembled. His physical body and Dao Palace were shaking continuously. The impurities in the placenta seeped out of his skin layer by layer. I'm about to become a cultivator of the upper level of the Tao Saint realm. Su Fang's face revealed a pained expression. However, his eyes were filled with joy. Every advancement was a transformation. At the same time, it was also a painful experience. However, to Su Fang, who had experienced his soul being burned like a wick, this pain was almost nothing. He endured it for more than a month. The power of advancement began to surge through his entire body. 7 heavenly marks could be seen in his Tao palace, avatar, and many parts of his physical body. The upper level of the Tao void realm. After experiencing the pain of life and death, Su Fang not only obtained countless treasures and improved his abilities, but he also successfully broke through to the highest level of the Tao void realm. When he reached the peak of the upper level of the Tao void realm, he would be a Tao saint. Su Fang settled down for a few more years. The advancement in his body and Tao palace gradually calmed down. After sensing for a while, Su Fang discovered that his Tao palace had become vast and deep by nearly 10 times. His various avatars had also undergone a transformation at the same time. As for his physical body, although there were many changes, the changes were not very big. The main reason was that his physical body was too powerful. Therefore, the changes were not that obvious when he advanced to the next level. He released his perception. Su Fang discovered that his vision and hearing had undergone a transformation several times. He could almost sense the chaotic void within a million miles. If he was in a mystic world, it would be even more shocking. He could sense a mystic world with just a thought. Just as Su Fang projected his perception, he coincidentally saw a silver sword light break through the chaotic void. The aura of the sword light was very familiar to Su Fang. It actually came from the Luo Shao sword sect of the Eastern Xian divine domain. Through the sword light, Su Fang saw a mystic sword that was 10 feet long. It was a royal grade flying sword. There were more than a dozen cultivators sitting cross-legged on the flying sword. They were all Su Fang's acquaintances. They were led by Tuo Qianji, Supreme Elder Spring Autumn, Great Elder Zhang Sun, and the Great Elder of the Luo Shao sword sect. There were also disciples of the Heaven Pavilion, Dongxian Daoyan, Dongxian Wuhan, Dongxian Lai, and others. However, they were all wearing the robes of elders. Gu Qianxi, Shu Chong Xiao, and the other disciples of the 2 major sects were also among them. The one who was controlling the flying sword was the Great Elder of the Luo Shao sword sect. Tuo Qianji's aura was weak and his robes were stained with blood. He was actually in a state of serious injury. Although the others were not injured, they all looked panicked and desperate, as if they were running for their lives. Just as the flying sword broke through the air, a figure immediately broke through the air with a swoosh. It was a foreign race cultivator from the chrysalis. His aura was extremely powerful, and he was a lower Tao Saint expert. The chrysalis expert had 12 wings behind him, and his speed was astonishing. The Great Elder of the Luo Shao sword sect was as fast as an ordinary Tao Saint, but he could not shake off the chrysalis expert's pursuit. Moreover, it was obvious that the chrysalis expert was not using his full strength. Instead, he looked like a cat playing with a mouse. There was a teasing look on his face, and he did not take Tuo Qianji and the others seriously at all. How did they come to the Western Xian divine domain, and why are they being pursued by foreign race experts? Seeing this scene, Su Fang was shocked and stunned. Then, a fierce killing intent flashed in his eyes. Tu Xiao, refined corpse, go kill that chrysalis Tao Saint, and bring those human cultivators here. Su Fang released Tu Xiao and refined corpse, and they went straight for Tuo Qianji and the others. Yes, master. Tu Xiao bowed respectfully to Su Fang. Over the years, Tu Xiao had been by Su Fang's side, and he had seen Su Fang's various extraordinary abilities. After being shocked, he had completely dispelled some of his unrealistic thoughts. Moreover, Tu Xiao had used the various resources that Su Fang had given him, and he was now on the verge of a breakthrough. In the past, this was something that Tu Xiao could only dream of. Although he was also an expert among the foreign race, his status was not very high. After all, there were many Tao saints like him among the foreign race, and he naturally did not receive good resources. Tu Xiu had thought that there was no hope for him to break through in this lifetime, and he had completely given up. Who would have thought that after being under Su Fong for 100,000 years, he would be on the verge of a breakthrough? Therefore, how could Tu Xiu not be grateful to Su Fong? In a flash, Tu Xiu and Refined Corpse teleported in front of Su Fong. Whoosh whoosh. Refined Corpse appeared in the air and blocked the flying sword's path. Tu Xiu, on the other hand, appeared directly in front of the experts of the chrysalis race who were chasing after them. Seeing Refined Corpse, who was exuding an aura of death, sensing his aura, and seeing that their escape route was blocked by two foreign race Tao saints, Tuo Qianji and the other Eastern Xian divine domain cultivators fell into complete despair. Whether it was Refined Corpse in front of them or Tu Xiu behind them, even if Tuo Qianji was not injured, he would not be a match for them. Now that Tuo Qianji was seriously injured, and there was no way for him to escape, how could they not despair? These prey are mine. How dare you snatch them from me? The expert of the chrysalis race who was chasing after them from behind bared his teeth at Tu Xiu. Prey. Tu Xiu was stunned, and then he smiled coldly. You should be my master's prey. He swung his tail violently, and a terrifying vibration of divine power swept out. The expert of the chrysalis race was caught off guard. Pale with fright, he wanted to activate his wasp wings to escape, but the vibration of divine power swallowed him in an instant. Then, with the help of the swinging tail, Tu Xiu's figure appeared in front of the expert of the chrysalis race in an instant, and with a swing of his tail, the expert's head was smashed into pieces. Then, Tu Xiu sucked the expert's corpse into his mouth and flew towards Tuo Qianji and the others. Seeing Tu Xiu kill the expert of the chrysalis race, Tuo Qianji and the others were not surprised at all. Then, they fell into endless despair once again. Facing the pursuit of the expert of the chrysalis race, Tuo Qianji and the others still had a sliver of chance to escape. Now that they had fallen into a pincer attack from an even stronger expert of a foreign race and an unfathomable refined corpse, their hope of escape had been completely extinguished. Tuo Qianji stood up slowly and shouted resolutely, Dong Xian, there are no cultivators who have surrendered to the foreign race. I will burn everything I have to fight the foreign race. Do you dare? Dong Xianwuhan stood up and said with a smile, even Lord Tuo Qianji is not afraid of death. What more us newly promoted elders? Gu Tianqi guffawed as well and said, we still have to do something. Why don't we fight vigorously? What's there to fear about death? Luo Xiao Sword Sect's Grand Elder laughed heartily. You juniors aren't afraid of death. Do you think an old man with one foot in the grave like me would care about death? Exalted Elder Spring Autumn and Grand Elder Changsun could only brace themselves and stand up. They had no choice. Falling into the hands of the foreign race would usually result in a horrible death. If they were to encounter a foreign race that was innately brutal, even death would be a luxury. Since they were going to die anyway, they might as well die quickly. Chapter 3097. Your master wants to see us. Tuo Qianji and the other Dongxian cultivators had thought that they were going to die this time, but Tu Xiu had no intention of killing them. Who would be willing to die if they could? Tuo Qianji and the others who were prepared to immolate themselves to fight Tu Xiu and the refined corpses dismissed the thought. However, they still dared not let down their guard. The Grand Elder of Luo Xiao Sword Sect activated his royal grade mystical sword to defend himself, afraid that he would fall into Tu Xiu's trap. They knew very well that if Tu Xiu and the refined corpses really wanted to kill them, the royal grade mystical sword would not be able to stop them. May I ask who your master is? Why does he want to see you? Tuo Qianji asked carefully. You will know when you see my master. Whether you live or die is up to my master. Go. Tu Xiu said indifferently. Tuo Qianji and the others grew nervous again. They felt that Tu Xiu's master was even more unfathomable. Tu Xiu's strength was enough to kill a Dao Saint expert. How powerful was his master? Tuo Qianji and the others even suspected that Tu Xiu's master was a Daozu of a foreign race. Left with no choice, the Grand Elder of Luo Shao Sword Sect could only brace himself and fly towards Su Fong under the lead of the refined corpses. They soon arrived at the ruins. Sensing the stench of the golden-haired weasel demon, Tuo Qianji and the others were even more certain that Tu Xiu's master was a foreign race, or possibly a big goblin. Furthermore, he had a special hobby of staying in such a stinky place. Lord Tuo Qianji, everyone, how have you been? A silhouette flew out of the ruins formation. Su Fong, how can it be you? Tuo Qianji, Supreme Elder Spring Autumn, and the others were dumbfounded when they saw Su Fong turning into wooden statues. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that they would actually encounter Su Fong here. What was more unexpected was that Tu Xiu's master was Su Fong. Supreme Elder Spring Autumn realized something and sent a telepathic message to Su Fong. Su Fong, have you been shackled by a foreign race expert? Su Fong laughed involuntarily. Just as he was about to explain, Tu Xiu and the refined corpse flew towards Su Fong and were sucked into the Dao Palace by Su Fong. They're my slaves. Because I have just advanced to the upper level of the Dao Void Realm, I am unable to make a move. That's why I sent them to save you. Su Fong smiled embarrassedly. Tuo Qianji, Supreme Highness Spring and Autumn, and the others were astounded once again. Their feelings were indescribable. Sir Tuo Qianji is heavily injured. Please recover quickly. Su Fong took out a king grade pellet and then urged the heaven-piercing Blood King Rot Tan to devour the corpses of the non-human cultivators, extracting their life essence and condensing it into a ball of energy, giving it to Tuo Qianji to recover. Experts such as Supreme Elder Spring and Autumn, Great Elder Chang's son, Luo Shao Sword Sect's Great Elder, Gu Qianqi, Dongxin Daoyan, and other disciples had also received many pills from Su Fong. Everyone entered their own cave abodes to cultivate, and then created clones with their thoughts to communicate with Su Fong. Gu Qianqi asked impatiently, Su Fong, I heard that you were sent by the Western Mystery Mountain to guard the 6 paths of heaven, but the non-human race invaded and you suddenly disappeared. Why are you here? Su Fong only knew now that the Western Mystery Mountain thought he had died in the 100,000 years he had been missing. The cultivators of the 6 paths of heaven colluded with the non-human race, and I was heavily injured. After leaving the 6 paths of heaven, I have been recovering here. Tell me about the current situation in the Western Mystery Divine Domain, and how did you come to be hunted by the non-human experts? Su Fong played down his encounter in the 6 paths of heaven. He didn't tell them about killing the million-strong non-human army. No one would believe him, even if he did. Moreover, the longevity lamp was involved, so Su Fong naturally had to keep it a secret. Then Tuo Qianji told Su Fong about the current situation in the Western Mystery Divine Domain. As it turned out, the Western Mystery Divine Domain and the human world had undergone tremendous changes during the 100,000 years Su Fong had been cultivating here. After the million-strong non-human army was killed by Su Fong, the invasion of the Western Mystery Divine Domain was delayed for 50,000 years, but they still invaded the Western Mystery Divine Domain. Other than the Western Mystery Mountain and a few major forces, almost all of the mystic worlds in the Western Mystery Divine Domain had been conquered by the non-human race. The destruction of the Western Mystery Divine Domain was a foregone conclusion, and many of its cultivators had fled to other divine domains. There were also rumors that Daozu of the Western Mystery Divine Domain had fallen, and it was because of this that the Western Mystery Divine Domain was conquered by the non-human race in such a short time. Dongxin Daozu was worried about Su Fong's safety, so he sent Tuo Qianji and others to the Western Mystery Divine Domain, planning to bring Su Fong back to Dongxian. Supreme Elder Chunxiu, Great Elder Changsan, and the Luo Shao Sword Sect's Great Elder had received favors from Su Fong during the Chaos Tide, and wanted to use this opportunity to get closer to Su Fong, so they had come along. Who knew? When they arrived at the Western Mystery Divine Domain, Tuo Qianji and the others found out that Su Fong had long disappeared without a trace, and was most likely dead. They had planned to head to the Western Mystery Mountain to seek confirmation, but before they could reach the mountain, they were attacked by the non-human experts. Tuo Qianji had fought his way out of the encirclement with heavy injuries, escaping all the way here. If he hadn't met Su Fang, he would have died without a doubt. I didn't expect the Western Mystery Divine Domain situation to be so critical. Su Fang's heart grew heavy. He thought of Daozu of the Western Mystery Divine Domain. Of course, Daozu of the Western Mystery Divine Domain wasn't really dead. Right now, he was in the primal chaos outside the realm, trying to break through to a higher realm than Daozu. He didn't know what the current situation was, or when it would end. The Western Mystery Divine Domain has been invaded by the non-human race. So why didn't the other divine domains send reinforcements? Su Fang asked Tuo Qianji in a low voice. When the non-human race attacked the Southern Mystery Divine Domain, more than half of the human race's experts had rushed to the Southern Mystery Divine Domain as reinforcements. Although they failed in the end, they did delay the non-human race's invasion. Now that the non-human race was attacking the Western Mystery Divine Domain, the human race's experts should have sent reinforcements as well. Otherwise, the human world would be destroyed one by one. Tuo Qianji let out a heavy sigh. The Southern Mystery Divine Domain has been destroyed, and many human experts have lost their will to fight. Coupled with some other reasons, the Western Mystery Divine Domain didn't send any reinforcements. Other reasons? Ever since the non-human race invaded the Western Mystery Divine Domain, Lord Daozu of the Western Mystery Divine Domain has never shown himself. People have heard rumors that he has died. After the Western Mystery Divine Domain lost Daozu, the other divine domains thought that the Western Mystery Divine Domain had lost its value. This is one of the reasons. What other reasons are there? Tuo Qianji suddenly switched to a sound transmission. There's another main reason. The human world is in a state of panic, and some of the top experts have lost their will to fight against the non-human race. Xian Zheng and the 5 god races of the Central Mystery Divine Domain have discovered a space-time outside the primal chaos, and they are treating it as a sacred ground for the continuation of the human race. Xian Zheng and the 5 god races of the Central Mystery Divine Domain made such a shocking discovery. Su Fang was shocked and surprised. It is said that the 5 god races are transferring their experts and talented clansmen to that sacred ground. They are preparing to abandon the Central Mystery Divine Domain completely. Xian Zheng is also wantonly recruiting experts and geniuses from all over the divine domains. He promised that as long as they submit to him, they will be able to follow him to that sacred ground. Even the Heavenly Fate stage is starting to move to that sacred ground. Tuo Qianji explained. Su Fang raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is that sacred ground capable of accommodating the human race of the Jiuquan divine domain?" Tuo Qianji said, "Of course not. It is said that the sacred ground is at most the size of the 10 Directions world. Therefore, Xian Zheng and the 5 god races can only select the true experts and geniuses with outstanding talent." Su Fang was furious. Xian Zheng and the 5 god races of the Central Mystery Divine Domain should be killed. If the human world united and fought against the non-human race together, there might be hope. Xian Zheng and the 5 god races seemed to be giving the human race a way out by doing this, but in reality, they had completely destroyed the human world's will to fight. Once the true experts and geniuses left the Jiuquan divine domain, the remaining humans would only be slaughtered by the non-human race. The 5 god races only cared about their own survival, and Xian Zheng wanted to develop his own forces, completely ignoring the lives of the other humans. If they didn't deserve to be killed, then what? Su Fang asked again. Did Master also agree to Xian Zheng's request? The master he was referring to was naturally Dongxin Daozu. Tuo Qianji shook his head and replied, "Although the foreign world Xian Zheng and the 5 god races found is a sacred ground for cultivation, it is in fact controlled by a powerful non-human race. If the human race led by Xian Zheng and the 5 god races went there, they would also be controlled by that powerful non-human race and become their vassals. It is because of this that Lord Daozu did not agree. Su Fang's mood became heavier and heavier. He thought to himself, the only hope for the human world now is that Master can succeed in his breakthrough. Tuo, Qianji said, now that the Western Profound Divine Domain is about to be destroyed, you should return to the Eastern Profound Divine Domain with us. With Lord Daozu's protection, at least you will be safe. There was a long silence. In the end, Su Fang's eyes flashed with certainty and determination. I will go to the Western Profound Mountain. Tuo Qianji turned pale with fright. High Holiness, Spring, Autumn, and the others also looked at Su Fang in shock. The Western Profound Mountain will be conquered by the non-human race sooner or later. If you go to the Western Profound Mountain now, how is that different from suicide? Tuo Qianji hurriedly dissuaded Su Fang. I escaped to the Eastern Profound Divine Domain this time. But what if the Eastern Profound Divine Domain is conquered next time? What if the human world is conquered by the non-human race again? At that time, where can I escape to? Su Fang made a clanging sound. After a pause, Su Fang continued. Moreover, the Western Profound Mountain may not be destroyed like you said. As long as we defend the Western Profound Mountain and delay for time, my master will rush back. At that time, not only the Western Profound Divine Domain, but the entire human world may have a chance of victory. The Western Profound Daozu is not dead. My master is a great expert at Daozu. How can he die so easily? He is just in seclusion to reach a height that the human race has never reached before. Once he succeeds, the human race will have hope. Su Fang's words surprised and shocked Tuo Qianji and the others. Then their eyes lit up. Chapter 3098. Su Fang was no fool. How could he not know that going to the Eastern Profound Divine Domain was the best choice? However, he had no choice but to go to the Western Profound Mountain. Su Fang was Daozu's disciple, and Daozu treated him like family. He couldn't escape knowing that the Western Profound Mountain was in danger. More importantly, there were still many subordinates left in the Western Profound Mountain's Strange Silence Peak. Goddess Luo was also left in the Strange Silence Peak. Due to some unexpected circumstances during the nurturing of the pregnant Heavenly Tao Core, Goddess Luo had always looked like a child. When Su Fang left the Western Profound Mountain, he thought that he would return soon, so he only took a few experts with him to train. He left Goddess Luo and the others in the Strange Silence Peak. Now that Goddess Luo and the others were still in the Western Profound Mountain, how could Su Fang just leave? There was also the Wine Saint. He had not recovered from his injuries in the Southern Profound Divine Domain, so he stayed in the Wine Saint Mountain to recuperate. Therefore, Su Fang had no choice but to go to the Western Profound Mountain. Su Fang, as far as I know, you have been suppressed in the Western Profound Mountain. Why do you want to sacrifice yourself for the Western Profound Mountain? Exalted Spring and Autumn advised. Great Elder Chang's son also said, I admire your loyalty. However, cultivators should give up everything. In the face of death, what can't be given up? In the past, these two experts had wholeheartedly wanted to kill Su Fang. But now, Su Fang's strength could easily crush them. This time, they had taken the risk to follow Tuo Qianji to the Western Profound Divine Domain because they wanted to get closer to Su Fang and resolve their previous grudges. They were advising Su Fang now for his own good. Some things are more important than life. I understand your good intentions, but I have made up my mind. There is no need to try to persuade me anymore. Su Fang said indifferently. The domineering aura and powerful will that only a Tao Saint expert could have made Exalted Spring and Autumn and Great Elder Chang's son speechless. The two of them realized that they had misspoken. What kind of person was Su Fang? Back in the Central Profound Divine region, Su Fang had killed the only son of the Hu people's patriarch, Hu Yufei, in a fit of rage for the sake of Shu Wanjin. He didn't care about the retaliation of the Hu people at all. With his character, how could he abandon his Tao companion and subordinates? Seeing that Su Fang was so determined, Tuo Qianji stopped persuading him. Gu Qianxi, Shu Chongxiao, and the others used to have a good relationship with Su Fang. However, at this time, Su Fang was far ahead of them, and they needed to look up to her. In front of Su Fong, they naturally felt a kind of reverence, and some words of persuasion could not be said. Su Fong pondered for a while and nodded at Tuo Qianji and the rest, saying, "Please wait for a moment. I still have some things that I need you to bring back to Dongxian and pass to my master." Next, Su Fong used a few months to condense all the time mirages that he had observed in the chaotic tide, including the voice of the other race's Daozu after he failed to break through to a higher level, into pieces of jade scrolls with his will. Then, Su Fong put these jade scrolls into a storage ring and passed it to Tuo Qianji alone, saying, "Lord Tuo Qianji, this storage ring is extremely important. You must bring it back to Heaven Pavilion and pass it to my master." Seeing how serious Su Fong was, Tuo Qianji also realized the importance of the storage ring and carefully absorbed it into his body through his palm. Su Fong was still worried and reminded him, "If you encounter the other race's experts, you must destroy the storage ring rather than let this storage ring fall into their hands. Remember." Tuo Qianji nodded and said, "I understand. As long as I have a breath left, I will definitely send the storage ring to Lord Daozu." Then, Su Fong took out thousands of talismans and passed them to Tuo Qianji. Most of them were talismans that he had personally created, while some were taken from the millions of other races' cultivators and dominion of Six Paths cultivators that he had killed. With these talismans, even if he encountered an expert of Divine Saint Intermediate Realm, it was enough to save his life. Then, Su Fong asked Tuo Qianji, "Lord, when you return to Eastern Xian Divine Realm, please take care of Heaven Forsaken Region's Fangtian City. Also, please head to the Medicine God Path and bring an alchemist by the name of Su Danshun to Heaven Pavilion." "Just a small matter, don't worry." Tuo Qianji agreed readily. To a powerhouse of Dongxian like him, Su Fong's request was indeed a small matter. "I should also head to Western Xian Mountain. Everyone take care." Su Fong cupped his fists at Tuo Qianji and the others, then entered Fuyao's cave and sped towards Western Xian Mountain. The mystic door that led to Western Xian Mountain was either sealed or destroyed by the other race. Su Fong could only rely on Fuyao's cave to pass through the chaos and mystic worlds in the region and head to Western Xian Mountain. The divine stones consumed to activate Fuyao's cave were truly astounding, but Su Fong had no qualms at this time, urging Fuyao's cave to fly at full speed. Su Fong controlled Fuyao's cave with his thoughts, while he was inside the flowing time formation, urging the heaven-piercing Blood King Vine to devour pills and strive to reach upper Dao Void Realm as soon as possible. About 1,000 years. Whoosh, the giant Kuanpeng that Fuyao's cave had transformed into flew out of a mystic world with a swirl of air. Inside the cave, Su Fong used his divine might to sense the mystic world. This mystic world was originally a major world of Western Xian Divine Realm. It used to be incomparably prosperous, but now it had been destroyed by the other race and turned into a wasteland. What Su Fong saw was only ruins, and the air of death drifted in the mystic world. Seeing the desolate and miserable scenes in the mystic world, Su Fong's heart became heavier and heavier. After carefully sensing, Su Fong found a few human cultivators who were lucky enough to survive in the mystic world. Su Fong used his divine might and directly captured these human cultivators from the mystic world and brought them into Fuyao's cave. There were more than 100 cultivators in total, and the one with the highest cultivation was an old man in the lower Dao Void Realm. These people were lucky enough to survive the great calamity, but they were suddenly captured by Su Fong and brought into the formation inside Fuyao's cave. They had no ability to resist at all, and all of them were terrified and in despair. Su Fong's thought transformed into a figure and walked out of the formation. Seeing that Su Fong was a human cultivator, everyone let out a long sigh of relief and knelt down to pay their respects to Su Fong. Next, Su Fong asked them in detail. It turned out that other than the Western Xian Mountain, all the other forces and mystic worlds in the Western Xian Divine Realm had been broken through. Wherever the foreign race army went, the mystic worlds were turned into wastelands. Even the essences and fortunes of the mystic worlds had been plundered clean by the foreign race experts. The human cultivators and mortals who were captured were either eaten or used to refine pills or cultivate. There were also some powerful experts who were captured as slaves. There were also many women who were captured by the foreign race to be used as breeding tools. The Western Xian Mountain was also heavily besieged. Although it was not broken through for the time being due to its powerful defenses, it could not escape the fate of destruction in the end. Su Fong sent those cultivators into the Heavenly Law Avatar and gave them pills to recover their cultivation. It won't be that easy to enter the Western Xian Mountain. Su Fong frowned deeply. Just as he thought of this, Su Fong's eyes suddenly focused. It turned out that Su Fong had sensed that more than 100 foreign race cultivators were riding on a winged big goblin and were flying over the sky. It was likely that some foreign race cultivators in charge of patrolling had discovered Fu Yao's cave. However, there were no truly powerful experts. The strongest among them was a foreign race expert who was at the peak of the upper Dao Void realm. A fierce aura surged in Su Fong's heart, and he released the refined corpse. Thousands of miles away from Fu Yao's cave, the leading foreign race expert shouted at the refined corpse in a domineering manner. "Which race are you? Why are you here? Take out your identity medallion." Whoosh, the refined corpse suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a gust of corpse fire. In an instant, it swept over and enveloped all the foreign race cultivators. This refined corpse was actually Leader Tian Coffin's true body. Although it was not as strong as Leader Tian Coffin, it was still not something these foreign race cultivators could fight against. Miserable screams rang out from the corpse fire. After a dozen breaths of time, all the foreign race cultivators were burned to ashes by the corpse fire. After killing these foreign race cultivators, Su Fong's resentment and anger subsided slightly. After retrieving the refined corpse, he activated Fu Yao's cave and headed straight for the Western Xian Mountain. About 3,000 years. Su Fong was in the Time Immortal's cave, swallowing countless pills. Among them, there were even 2 king-grade pills. Finally, he stabilized his realm at the upper Dao Void realm. On the way, Su Fong passed by many sealed world plains. All he saw were barren wastelands that had been plundered by the foreign race army. He also encountered foreign race cultivators several times. Among them, there was even an ordinary Dao Saint expert. All of them were killed by Su Fong. As he got closer to the Western Xian Mountain, he encountered more and more foreign race experts. Su Fong had no choice but to put away Fu Yao's cave and let Tu Xiu absorb it into his body. Tu Xiu was a foreign race expert. Although he was questioned many times on the way, he did not encounter any trouble. The Western Xian Mountain was in sight. Su Fong used Tu Xiu's eyes to look in the direction of the Western Xian Mountain. Outside the boundary of the Western Xian Mountain, there were countless objects floating. There were even pieces of sealed world territory that had been moved here by the foreign race experts using their supreme divine abilities to serve as foreign army camps. On those objects and sealed worlds, there were countless foreign race armies. They were divided into different races and were stationed on different objects and sealed worlds. There were too many foreign races. In Qi, evil Qi, and evil Qi covered the sky, forming a layer of haze that enveloped the entire Western Xian Mountain. Coupled with the boundary, it was difficult to see what was going on inside the Western Xian Mountain. Not only were there many foreign race armies, Su Fong also sensed an aura of nothingness. There were no less than 30 Dao Saints. There was also a powerful existence that Su Fong could only vaguely sense. It had surpassed the limit of Dao Saints. It should be the foreign race's Daozu. This was only what Su Fong could sense. After all, his sensing range was limited. He could not sense all the foreign races. Su Fong's scalp went numb. His Dao heart also trembled. With such a shocking foreign race army, how could the Western Xian Mountain not be broken? Fortunately, the Western Xian Mountain's foundation was incomparably strong. There were all kinds of defenses and restrictions. Even if the Western Xian Daozu was not there, the foreign race army would not be able to break through in a short time. Chapter 3099. Su Fong pondered for a moment. then used the unraveling heavenly divination technique to deduce the heavenly secrets. I can only wait for the outsiders to attack the Western Mystery Mountain and take advantage of the chaos to sneak in. This is my only chance. If the Western Mystery Mountain is breached, I won't be able to reverse the situation. At that time, I can only save the fairy, Wine Sage, Senior Brother Ian Patian, and the others. Su Fong calculated and weighed the pros and cons before finally coming to a decision. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't resolve the crisis of the Western Mystery Mountain. At that time, he could only do his best and leave the rest to fate. Su Fong was confident that with his various extraordinary abilities, as long as he didn't alarm those Daozu-level existences, he could easily escape. He then communicated with Tu Xiu. Tu Xiu, where is your race stationed? Can you enter your race and then try to sneak in when they attack the Western Mystery Mountain? Master, I went missing in the Six Paths Heavens. If I suddenly return to my race now, I will definitely be suspected. When the time comes and they investigate, I'm afraid that the higher-ups of the outsiders will be alerted. Thus, I definitely cannot return. Tu Xiu's answer disappointed Su Fongda. Tu Xiu was speaking the truth. He wasn't trying to evade the responsibility. After all, Tu Xiu was a Dao Saint expert, one of the most powerful of the outsiders. The invasion of the Six Paths Heavens had been completely wiped out. If Tu Xiu suddenly returned, it would definitely arouse suspicion. Su Fong was at his wit's end. It seems that I can only leave the Western Mystery Mountain and return when the battle erupts. Master, if you want to infiltrate the Outsiders' army, it's actually very simple. You have a way? Master, look carefully at that black mountain. Su Fong looked in the direction Tu Xiu was pointing. In the air less than 100,000 miles away from the non-humankind army, a thousands of meters tall mountain floated in the air. A dark, evil power had been coiling around the mountain like a cloud, making it look like a ferocious, evil monster. One could see palaces and pavilions on the Black Mountain. Many outsiders could be seen entering and exiting the mountain. What is that place? That's the three-eyed black demon race's treasure exchange mountain. It's similar to a human merchant guild, a place for outsiders to trade. There's actually such a trading place in the non-humankind army. The alien army comes from different races, and they often trade with each other. The three-eyed black demon clan is the most powerful race among all the alien races that are attacking the human world this time. They specialize in providing trading places and making huge profits. You mean to say that you want me to enter the treasure exchange mountain and wait until the battle begins? Yes, Master. On the treasure exchange mountain, there were also cave dwellings that were specially rented for foreign race experts. The owner could rent a cave dwelling on the treasure exchange mountain without being checked. However, a cave abode on Treasure Change Mountain isn't cheap. What this lord does not lack the most is money. Su Fong chuckled and immediately had Tu Xiu fly toward Baoshan. Moments later, Tu Xiu arrived at the foot of the Black Mountain Peak. When he entered the mountain gate, Tu Xiu was strictly interrogated. Not only did he check his identity token, but he was also sensed by a foreign race expert who was half a step away from Daozu. It seemed like this treasure exchange mountain also had a powerful foreign race expert overseeing it. Su Fong immediately became extremely cautious. Tu Xiu was originally a foreign race expert, so naturally, they couldn't find anything wrong with him. Soon, he was allowed to enter the mountain gate. The moment Tu Xiu stepped through the mountain gate, he was immediately swept up by the spatial distortion and was teleported out. When he reappeared, he was at the square in front of a black palace at the waist of the mountain. Tu Xiu had entered the treasure exchange mountain of the three-eyed black demon clan before, so he naturally wasn't unfamiliar with it. He walked directly into the black palace. With the help of Tu Xiu's eyes, Su Fong could clearly see everything outside. After entering the palace, Su Fong was surprised to see that there were different races in the palace. Their strength was very shocking, and the weakest was comparable to a void Dao cultivator. Among them, there were even two powerful ordinary Dao Saint experts. What surprised Su Fong was that there were actually many human race cultivators in the palace, and their cultivations weren't low. However, these human cultivators weren't guests like Tu Xiu, but slaves. It was very obvious that these human cultivators had been captured by the foreign race and were being ordered around as slaves. Among these human cultivators, there were Tao masters and even void Tao experts. They used to be overlords of a profound world, but now they had become slaves of the foreign race. This caused a wave of sorrow and anger to surge in Su Fang's heart. As soon as Tu Xiu entered the palace, a human woman quickly walked over and bowed to Tu Xiu. She said, "My lord, may I ask if there's anything I can serve you?" This woman was only in her early 20s. Her appearance was extremely beautiful, but her clothes were very revealing. When she bowed to Tu Xiu, more than half of her chest was exposed, and it was very tempting. This woman's cultivation was also shocking, and she had reached the upper Tao master realm. It was unknown which power she was a genius from, but now she had become a servant and was forcing a smile in front of a foreign race. Tu Xiu said indifferently, "I'll rent a cave residence. My lord, please follow me." The beautiful woman brought Tu Xiu to the side of the palace. Tu Xiu paid 50 million divine stones to rent a first-rate cave residence on the Treasure Exchange Mountain, and he would be renting it for 10,000 years. 50 million divine stones wasn't a small amount, and it was comparable to the entire wealth of a medium-sized power. Yet, he was actually only able to rent a cave residence on the Treasure Exchange Mountain for 10,000 years. Fortunately, Su Fang had obtained countless divine stones from killing 1,000,000 Xeno-race soldiers, so 50 million divine stones wasn't a big deal. "My lord, I'll bring you to the cave residence." After Tu Xiu obtained the command token, the beautiful woman took the initiative to lead the way, and she seemed to be extremely warm. When they arrived before the cave residence that was located in a call, Tu Xiu waved his hand and swept out 100 divine stones towards the woman. "This is your reward. Go on." The woman revealed a charming expression as she stared at Tu Xiu. "Could it be that my lord doesn't need any other services?" Tu Xiu was stunned, and then he understood what she meant and waved his hand towards her. The woman revealed a disappointed expression, and then she said, "My lord, do you intend to stay on the Treasure Exchange Mountain until the battle begins?" Tu Xiu looked at the woman and said coldly, "You dare to inquire about me?" The beautiful woman's body trembled, and she said in a trembling voice, "My lord, you've misunderstood. I just want to remind you that before the battle begins, there will be an auction on the Treasure Exchange Mountain. At that time, all kinds of treasures will appear. I'm afraid that you'll miss it, so I'm reminding you. I'm definitely not trying to inquire about you." Auction. Su Fang, who was in the space inside Tu Xiu's body, was stunned, and then he transmitted his thoughts to Tu Xiu. "Ask her when it will be held and what treasures there will be." Tu Xiu repeated Su Fang's words to the beautiful woman. "I'm not very sure about the exact time, but it will definitely be before the attack on the Western Black Mountain. At most, it will be a few thousand years, and at least a few hundred years. If the auction begins, inform me with a rune talisman." Tu Xiu took out a rune talisman and gave it to the woman, and then he entered the cave residence with the command token. There was another universe inside the cave residence, and it was an independent space-time with a radius of 10,000 feet. Tu Xiu came to a floating island in the middle of the space-time and found a quiet place to sit down. At this time, Su Fang did not dare to be careless, and he hid in Tu Xiu's body. Su Fang entered Fu Yao's cave residence and continued to cultivate, waiting for the auction and the battle to begin. Su Fang did not lack any Xianbao now, but he was still interested in the alien race's auction, mainly because he wanted to prepare to break through to the Tao Saint realm. The great tribulation of the Tao Saint realm was extraordinary, and Su Fang cultivated the Jiuxuan Limitless Sutra. When the time came, the heavenly tribulation would be even more shocking. Although Su Fang was confident in his own strength, he still did not have much confidence. He was still far away from breaking through to the Tao Saint realm. But now that the human world was facing a calamity, Su Fang naturally had to prepare early. 1,000 years passed very quickly. In Fu Yao's cave residence, Su Fang had already spent 60,000 years. After continuously devouring pills, spiritual items, and the life and energy of the alien race's cultivators, Su Fong had not only reached the normal state of the upper Tao void realm, but he was also getting closer and closer to the peak of the upper Tao void realm. After the heaven-piercing Blood King vine transformed, after so many years of devouring, it became even more shocking. Gui Gui had also awakened, and his evil aura and poison made Su Fong feel afraid. Su Fong estimated that even a peerless expert in the Middle Tao Saint realm would have a headache if he encountered Gui Gui. The refined corpse also became stronger under Su Fong's continuous refinement of various spiritual items, and it was not far from the peak state of Leader Tian Coffin. Buzz! A rune talisman in Tu Xiu's body suddenly moved. It turned out that the beautiful human girl had sent news that the auction would begin in 3 months. According to the woman, this auction would not only have all kinds of powerful treasures, but also human slaves. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye, and on the day of the auction, Tu Xiu came out of the cave residence. The human girl had been waiting in front of the cave residence for a long time, and when she saw Tu Xiu, she immediately revealed a charming smile. "My lord, can I accompany you in this auction?" Su Fong did not know much about the alien race's auction, and with this girl by his side, it would naturally be much more convenient, and he would only have to spend a few hundred divine stones. "Let's go," Tu Xiu said in a low voice. The girl was surprised and happy, and quickly led the way. They flew all the way to the peak of Treasure Exchange Mountain. A huge palace sat on the peak of the mountain, and it was completely different from the palaces of the human race. The palace was like the head of a demon, and it emitted an ancient and evil aura. They landed on the square in front of the palace, and just as they were about to enter the palace, Su Fong in Tu Xiu's body suddenly sent out a thought. "Wait, Master, what happened?" "Nothing, I just sensed the aura of a few old friends, but I didn't expect them to appear in the alien race's Treasure Exchange Mountain." Tu Xiu stopped for a moment, and more than 30 figures flew onto the square. There were many alien cultivators among them, and 5 of them were powerful experts at the Tao Saint realm. Chapter 3100. The alien races and the human race were like fire and water. It was strange to see human cultivators on the alien race's Treasure Exchange Mountain and be treated as guests. Su Fong recognized all the human cultivators. The leader was the Hu people's Tao Saint, Hu Pa. There were also Tao Saints from the Yi, Li, and other divine clans of the Central Mystic Divine Domain. The rest were all powerful experts from the 5 divine clans. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that the top figures of the 5 divine clans of the Central Mystic Divine Domain would appear on Treasure Exchange Mountain? How the 5 divine clans of the Central Mystic Divine Domain sided with the alien races? Su Fong was puzzled and asked Tu Xiu to ask the human girl, "Why are there human experts on Treasure Exchanging Mountain?" "These human cultivators have been to Treasure Exchange Mountain before. I've heard some things about them. I heard that they came from the 5 divine clans of the Central Mystic Divine Domain. They've left the human race and sided with an ancient alien race called the Tensei people." Tensei people? I heard that the Tensei people are the top race in the chaos. They're even more powerful than the 3-eyed black demons. The 5 divine clans have become the vassals of the Tensei people. They're protected by the Tensei people, and the alien races don't dare to make things difficult for them. Su Fong was shocked and surprised when he heard this inside Tu Xiu's body. The Tensei people were probably going to the pure world's sacred land where Xianzheng and the 5 divine clans were going. Xianzheng's so-called continuation of the human race was nothing more than joining a powerful alien race and becoming their slaves. The Western Mystery Mountain has been besieged by the foreign races. For the experts of the 5 divine clans to suddenly appear here, they must be here for the Western Mystery Mountain. A fierce aura surged in Su Fong's heart. The 5 divine clans' alliance with the alien races was tantamount to betraying the human race. Su Fong's heart was filled with murderous intent. Tu Xiu's cold gaze swept over Hu Pa and the others. Then he strode into the palace. The interior of the Black Palace was actually an enormous auction hall, filled with outsider cultivators. If there weren't 10,000 of them, there were at least 8,000, and all of them were powerful experts. My lord, you're a Tao saint and have the right to sit at the front. However, you have to pay 10,000 godstones. The female human sent a voice transmission to Tu Xiu. Tu Xiu walked straight to the front row. A cultivator from the three-eyed Black Devil clan blocked Tu Xiu's way. Tu Xiu handed over 10,000 godstones and was brought to a throne in the front row. The beautiful woman also followed along, standing by Su Fang's side to serve her. Before long, Hu Pa and the other human cultivators, accompanied by the non-human experts, arrived at the auction house and sat down in a row behind Tu Xiu. There were still 6 hours before the auction would begin. Tu Xiu sat cross-legged on his throne and closed his eyes to rest. Suddenly, an angry roar resounded, impacting Tu Xiu's soul. The third prince of the ferocious flood dragon has reserved all the seats in the first row. Lowly Irontail race scrammed to the back. Tu Xiu was caught off guard. His origin soul shivered as he grunted. When he opened his eyes, he saw a non-human expert standing in front of him. The non-human expert had 2 horns on his head and sinister fangs protruding from his mouth. He looked extremely hideous and ugly. There was a young non-human cultivator who looked just like the non-human expert sitting in the front row. He wore a blood-red cloak and looked at Tu Xiu with disdain and contempt. Master, that is a noble of the ferocious Flood Dragon clan. The ferocious Flood Dragon clan is a powerful clan second only to the three-eyed Black Devil clan. They have a grudge against the Irontail race. How should I deal with him? Tu Xiu sent a message to Su Fang. Ferocious Flood Dragon clan? Su Fang snorted coldly. If this was any other time, do what you would do now. Whoosh, Tu Xiu's tail swept out and sent the non-human expert flying. The entire auction house was in an uproar. The young man from the ferocious Flood Dragon clan was enraged. Lowly Irontail race, you are courting death. Tu Xiu said indifferently. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? If this wasn't the auction house of the three-eyed Black Demon clan, I would have killed you, you little bastard. The ferocious Flood Dragon clan expert who was sent flying by Tu Xiu let out a furious roar and was about to charge at Tu Xiu. Suddenly, a terrifying aura that was at the peak of the divine saint realm descended and slammed into the non-human expert's body. It pressed him to the ground and smashed a huge hole in the hard ground. Fighting is prohibited in the auction house. Otherwise, you will be killed without mercy. An indifferent voice resounded in the auction house. The young man from the ferocious Flood Dragon clan gritted his teeth but did not dare to make a sound. The ferocious Flood Dragon clan expert got up from the ground and glared fiercely at Tu Xiu before standing beside the young man resentfully. After another 2 hours, the auction finally began. The beautiful woman from the human race was right. There were indeed many rare treasures in the auction house of the Treasure Exchange Mountain. Most of the treasures were plundered from the southern profound and western profound divine domains by the non-human race when they invaded the human world. Now, they were being auctioned by the three-eyed Black Demon clan. However, there were not many treasures that could tempt Su Fang. Su Fang had killed the million-strong non-human army and taken their treasures for himself. He naturally did not lack ordinary treasures. It was only when the three-eyed Black Demon clan elder on the stage took out a talisman that Su Fang's interest was piqued. This Calamity Nullification Talisman is a powerful talisman obtained from the Southern Profound Divine Domain's master after he was killed by a supreme expert of my clan. This Calamity Nullification Talisman can withstand a full-powered attack from a Daozu expert. However, its greatest use is to transcend the tribulation. With this talisman, one has a 99% chance of transcending the divine tribulation and reaching the supreme Daozu realm. There's also a 50% chance of success. The three-eyed Black Demon clan elder's words caused a huge commotion in the auction house. The talisman from the southern profound Daozu could defend against a full-powered attack from a Daozu expert and help one transcend the tribulation. Who would not scramble for such a powerful talisman? However, the price of this talisman was extremely shocking. It started at 10 million divine stones and quickly broke through 100 million. Moreover, the price was still rising. 300 million divine stones. Tu Xiu suddenly called out a high price of 300 million divine stones. It was 50 million more than the previous highest price and caused the entire auction house to fall silent. These non-human cultivators had invaded the human world and plundered it without restraint. Although they were all quite wealthy, 300 million divine stones was still an astronomical figure to most of them. Although the calamity nullification talisman was powerful, it was not a Xian Bao. It was useless after one use. It was not worth 300 million divine stones. Many non-human cultivators also looked at Tu Xiu in a new light. The Irontail race was not a powerful race among the non-human races. They did not expect Tu Xiu, a Dao Saint of the Irontail race, to be a tycoon. The three-eyed black demon clan elder on the stage laughed so hard that his mouth stretched from ear to ear. This lord of the Irontail race really knows his stuff. 300 million divine stones. Who else can bid higher? The three-eyed black demon clan elder asked 3 times. When he saw that no one else was bidding, he was about to announce the winner of the calamity nullification talisman. However, the young man from the Savage Dragon clan suddenly shouted, 300 million and 1 divine stones. Swoosh! Swoosh! The young man from the Savage Dragon clan immediately attracted everyone's attention. Tu Xiu had bid 300 million divine stones, but the young man from the Savage Dragon clan had bid 1 more divine stone than him. If this was not a provocation, then what was? The three-eyed black devil elder on the auction stage stared at the Savage Flood Dragon youth with a cold, black light flashing from the eye between his eyebrows. Savage Flood Dragon Third Prince. My clan's auction is not a game. I don't care if you have a grudge against someone, but if you deliberately cause trouble during the auction, don't blame me for not giving face to the Savage Flood Dragon King. Don't worry, my lord. This king naturally knows the rules of the auction. This king has plenty of money. Are you afraid that this king won't be able to take out a mere 300 million divine stones? The young man from the Savage Dragon clan laughed mischievously. Then, he looked at Tu Xiu and sneered. Lowly Irontail race. This king will add 1 more divine stone no matter how much you bid. This king will crush you to death with divine stones this time. Tu Xiu's eyes flashed with a cold light. He sent a sound transmission to Su Fong. Master, what should we do? Su Fong decisively replied. 350 million divine stones. Get the calamity nullification talisman at all costs. The foreign races were about to attack the Western Black Mountain. Su Fong was about to face a fierce battle of life and death. This calamity nullification talisman could withstand an attack from an expert from the Daozu race. It was equivalent to having another chance to save his life. Even if he couldn't use it during the battle, Su Fong could still use this calamity nullification talisman during his great tribulation of the Dao Saint realm. As for divine stones, Su Fong had plundered the foreign race army of 1 million. Among them were the wealth of 5 foreign race Dao Saints. He had more than 10 billion divine stones in his hands. He didn't lack money. 350 million divine stones. Tu Xiu confidently bid. The auction house was in an uproar again. The third prince of the Savage Flood Dragon race said, without hesitation, 350 million and 1 divine stones. Tu Xiu raised his eyebrows. 400 million. 401 divine stones. 430 million. 430 million and 1 divine stones. Just like that, the third prince of the Savage Flood Dragon race competed with Tu Xiu. Every time, he bid 1 more divine stone than Tu Xiu. When Tu Xiu bid 500 million divine stones, the third prince of the Savage Flood Dragon race added 1 more divine stone. Tu Xiu suddenly said, "Congratulations, Savage Flood Dragon Prince. This calamity nullification talisman is yours." The third prince of the Savage Flood Dragon race was instantly stunned. Then, he flew into a rage. "Lowly Irontail race, how dare you trick this king?" Tu Xiu coldly said, "If I don't trick an idiot like you, Who am I going to trick? The auction house was in an uproar of laughter. This king doesn't want this calamity nullification talisman. The 500 million divine stones are yours. The third prince of the savage flood dragon race shouted. Tushio let out a cold laugh. I'm not a fool. Why would I use 500 million divine stones to buy a human's talisman? The three-eyed black devil race elder on the stage shouted in a deep voice, third prince of the savage flood dragon race. I've warned you before. If you can't take out 501 divine stones, don't blame me for being merciless. The third prince of the savage flood dragon race grimaced in pain. Although he was the third prince of the savage flood dragon race, he wasn't a nouveau riche. Although he could take out 500 million divine stones, it was all he had. Moreover, he didn't bring that many divine stones with him. Left with no choice, the third prince of the savage flood dragon race could only order his subordinates to go back and get the divine stones. The three-eyed black devil race wasn't so easy to offend. The auction continued. The following treasures that were auctioned didn't interest Su Fong, so Tu Xiu didn't say anything else. It wasn't until the next auction item was sent to the stage that Su Fong, in Tu Xiu's body, said in disbelief, "It's actually her." It turned out that the auction item on the stage wasn't a treasure, but a dozen human cultivators. Chapter 3101. Su Fong hadn't seen Sima Xiao Xiao since the heavenly selection in the Zhoushuan. He had never imagined that Sima Xiao Xiao would be captured by the foreign races and placed on the foreign races auction stage as a slave. Su Fong used Tu Xiu's eyes to look at Sima Xiao Xiao. The dozen or so women of the Grand Supreme Realm had been shackled by the foreign races, but they didn't seem to be injured or tortured. Of course, this wasn't because the foreign races were merciful, but because they wanted to sell them for a good price. Naturally, they had to look good. The female cultivator's eyes were filled with incomparable despair. Only Sima Xiao Xiao's eyes were calm, but there was a deathly stillness in that calm. They clearly knew what fate awaited them. They would either be used as playthings or as breeding and cultivation tools once they fell into the hands of the foreign races. These female cultivators used to be peerless geniuses. Now that they had fallen to such a state, one could imagine the despair in their hearts. The moment the female cultivators appeared on the auction stage, they immediately attracted greedy gazes. Many foreign race experts looked at them as if they were livestock. There's a woman among them. She seems to be a top genius of the southern profound divine region. Hu Pa, who was sitting in the second row, immediately recognized Sima Xiao Xiao. Sima Xiao Xiao's performance in the Zhoushuan heavenly selection had been extremely dazzling, so Hu Pa naturally had an impression of her. Hu Pa continued, "Such a genius has fallen to such a state. Why don't we buy her and raise her as a slave? The Hu people will definitely have another powerful expert in the future." The Yi clan's Dao Saint also said, "Our Yi clan's cultivation technique requires talented female geniuses. We are also interested in these female cultivators. Lord Hu Pa, please don't fight with me for them." Su Fong's killing intent surged when he heard their conversation. The third prince of the savage flood dragon tribe looked at the female cultivator on the platform with a lustful glint in his eyes as he shouted, "This king loves to ravage the women of the human tribe the most. This king wants 100,000 divine stones for these women." The three-eyed black devil race elder on the stage chuckled and said loudly, 100,000 divine stones isn't enough. These human women are all peerless geniuses of the human race. One of them is even a disciple of Nan Xian Daozu and possesses a special constitution like the Black Lotus Tribulation Fire. 100,000 divine stones can buy a decent divine beast, but can't buy these dozen human women. The starting bid is 1 million divine stones. 1,050,000. 1 million. 1,500,000. The non-human cultivators in the auction house began to bid one after another. Although more than 1 million divine stones was not a small number, it was only a fraction compared to the treasures that had been auctioned earlier. Moreover, the vast majority of foreign race cultivators were still charging towards Sima Xiao Xiao's Black Lotus Tribulation Fire. Sima Xiao Xiao, the prodigy of the southern mystic divine realm back then, was not even worth a single treasure. Su Fang's heart was filled with sorrow. At the same time, his hatred for the foreign races was brewing like a volcano in his heart. From the small countries of the mortal world to the large sects, factions, and races, once they were weak, they would be bullied and slaughtered like pigs and sheep. The strong preyed on the weak. This law had never changed since ancient times. 10 million divine stones. Hoopa suddenly offered a high price, and the auction house suddenly quieted down. Then, Hoopa stood up and cupped his fists to the foreign race cultivators behind him. This seat is from the Tensei people. Please give me some face. Tensei people? These humans are actually from the Tensei people. The foreign race cultivators' expressions changed instantly. It was obvious that they were extremely wary of the Tensei people. Seeing that no one was bidding, Hoopa thought that these human women were going to belong to him. He was very pleased with himself. Who knew? The third prince of the savage flood dragon race suddenly said domineeringly, "Humph! How dare these lowly humans who have just joined the Tensei people call themselves Tensei people? This king wants these human women. 10 million divine stones." Hoopa raised his eyebrows and continued to bid. 11 million divine stones. The third prince of the savage flood dragon race shouted proudly, "This king has plenty of money. How can lowly humans like you compare to him? $11,001. The Dao Saint of the Yi clan also started a bid. 30 million divine stones. If anyone bids higher, I will stop bidding. The third prince of the savage flood dragon race shouted domineeringly, 30 million divine stones. Hoopa and the Dao Saint of the Yi clan fell silent. It was not that they did not have money. They had come to the foreign races because they had something important to do. The savage flood dragon race was a powerful race among the foreign races. It was not worth offending the prince of the savage flood dragon race for a dozen female cultivators. Suddenly, Tu Shio's cold voice rang out. 100 million divine stones. Whoosh! There was an uproar in the auction house. In the eyes of the foreign race's cultivators, those human women were no different from livestock. Even spending 1 million divine stones was too expensive. How could these foreign race cultivators not be shocked by Tu Shio's bid of 100 million divine stones? The beautiful woman beside Tu Shio was also shocked. She did not expect Tu Shio to be so rich that he would spend 100 million divine stones to buy a dozen human female cultivators. One had to know that she had been bought from the slave market by the three-eyed black demon race for 10,000 divine stones. The third prince of the savage flood dragon race shouted, 100 million divine stones. The three-eyed black demon race elder on the stage glanced at the third prince of the savage flood dragon race coldly. He immediately retreated in fear. He suddenly understood. He looked at Tu Shio and laughed coldly. Are you trying to set up a trap for this king to jump into? This king is so wise. Why would he fall for your trick? The three-eyed black demon race elder said to Tu Shio, let me remind you that this is 100 million divine stones. If you raise the price on purpose and are unable to take out the divine stones in the end, the consequences are not something you can bear. Tu Shio snorted. I don't need you to remind me. When the time comes, I will naturally take out 100 million divine stones. The third prince of the savage flood dragon race laughed coldly. When did the lowly Irontail race become so rich? My lord, it's best if you verify it. Otherwise, if you can't even get a single divine stone, it will be useless even if you kill this lowly race. The third prince's idea is not bad. The three-eyed black demon race elder nodded. Then he looked at Tu Shio. Take out 100 million divine stones, and you can take all these human women away now. Sure. Tu Shio waved his hand and took out a storage ring. It flew onto the stage and was caught by the elder. The elder checked the storage ring. His eyes were filled with shock. He nodded at Tu Shio and said, These women are yours. Then, the three-eyed black demon race elder unleashed a wave of divine might and swept the dozen women and the restriction tokens that controlled them all to Tu Shio. Tu Shio released a Xian Guang from his palm. Sima Xiao Xiao and the other women and their tokens were all sucked into his body. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Everyone looked at Tu Xiu with shock and surprise. There were even some foreign race experts whose eyes were filled with greed. Tu Xiu was able to spend 100 million divine stones to buy a dozen human female cultivators. It was obvious how rich he was. In addition, the Iron-Tail race was not considered a powerful race among the foreign races. Naturally, it attracted the greed of many foreign race cultivators. However, when they saw Tu Xiu's strength at the peak of the lower Dao Saint level, most of them gave up on the idea. Although there were many foreign race experts, cultivators at the Dao Saint level were still powerful existences that ordinary foreign race cultivators did not dare to provoke. My lord, you should quickly leave the auction and return to the cave abode. Otherwise, there will be a lot of trouble. The beautiful human woman secretly reminded Tu Xiu. Would they dare to kill and steal the treasures at the auction? That would not be the case. However, when my lord leaves Treasure Exchange Mountain, it will be hard to say. It's okay. I know what I'm doing. Seeing that Tu Xiu had no intention of leaving, the beautiful woman was extremely anxious. It was not easy to meet a rich man. Of course, she did not want to be killed so quickly. Within Tu Xiu's body, more than a dozen female cultivators had been bought by Tu Xiu. All of them fell into despair and speculated about their future. Suddenly, a figure slowly flew over. He looked at Sima Xiao and said with a smile, "Young Miss Sima, we meet again." The sudden appearance of a human cultivator in the body of a foreign race expert had already surprised the female cultivators. They did not expect Su Fong to know Sima Xiao. This shocked them even more. Su Fong? In Sima Xiao's deathly still eyes, there was a look of disbelief in a split second, and her eyeballs almost popped out. Su Fong? He is the #1 genius of the human race. Su Fong. The other female cultivators exclaimed in surprise. Sima Xiao's eyes, which had just lit up, suddenly dimmed again. She sighed and said, "Su Fong, I did not expect you to be captured by a foreign race expert. It seems that the human world is about to be destroyed." Su Fong chuckled and said, "I wasn't captured. I controlled an alien slave and sneaked into this place." "The foreign race expert who bought us is a slave controlled by you?" Sima Xiao's eyes widened again. Then she shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Su Fong, you and I have already been reduced to such a state. Why do you have to make such a joke? That foreign race expert is a Dao Saint. Unless you have the strength of Daozu, how can you control him?" Su Fong smiled embarrassedly and did not explain further. He used his divine power and senses to penetrate into Sima Xiao's body and Dao Palace. There were more than a dozen seals in Sima Xiao's Dao Palace and physical body. Moreover, it was done by a Dao Saint. It could be seen that the foreign race valued her very much. However, these seals were not a problem for Su Fong. He did not even need to do it personally. He did not even bother to use the token. He directly released the heavenly devouring insects, which burrowed into Sima Xiao's body and quickly ate up the seals. Then, the heavenly devouring insects did the same thing and erased the seals and the other female cultivators. Sima Xiao finally believed Su Fong's words. She was shocked and suddenly pounced on Su Fong. She hugged Su Fong and cried bitterly. Su Fong felt a soft fragrance in his arms. He did not push her away or hug her. It was very awkward. The other female cultivators also hugged each other and cried bitterly. They had been captured by the foreign race. Although they had not been tortured, they had been on tenterhooks all day long. Moreover, they had witnessed their relatives, elders, and fellow disciples being trampled on like livestock by the foreign race. Chapter 3102. After Sima Xiao calmed down, she told Su Fong about her experiences in the past few years. It turned out that after the southern profound divine realm was breached by the outsiders, Sima Xiao was heavily injured and had to hide everywhere. After her injuries recovered slightly, Sima Xiao escaped from the southern profound divine realm and went through many hardships to reach the western profound divine realm. But she was unlucky. Once she reached the western profound divine realm, the outsiders began to attack the western profound divine realm. She encountered the outsiders' experts and was captured. It It was also thanks to the special constitution of the Black Lotus Tribulation Fire that she was still valuable in the eyes of the outsiders. She luckily escaped the fate of becoming the outsider's plaything like most human women. The other women, some from the Western Profound Divine Realm, some from the Southern Profound Divine Realm, were all auctioned off because of their beauty and extraordinary cultivation talent. If they hadn't been lucky enough to meet Su Fong, their fates could be imagined. Su Fong, what realm are you at now? You can even control a Tao Saint expert of the outsiders? Sima Xiao stared at Su Fong and asked embarrassedly. She was only at the middle stage of the Tao Profound Realm and had been shackled by the outsiders all these years. At her age, it was already very impressive for her to reach such a realm. She couldn't help but be curious that she couldn't see through Su Fong's realm. Su Fong answered honestly, upper stage of the Tao Void Realm. Upper stage of the Tao Void Realm? Sima Xiao and the other female cultivators sucked in a breath of cold air. During the Jiuxuan Heavenly Selection, Su Fong was only a Tao Master, but now he had reached the upper stage of the Tao Void Realm. What kind of shocking speed was this? One had to know that the realm above Tao Master could not be nurtured with resources alone. It also required talent and some luck. Every step up was extremely difficult. If one encountered a shackle, they would be stuck there forever. Not even 500,000 years had passed since the Jiuxuan Heavenly Selection, but Su Fong had gone from a Tao Master to a peerless expert close to a Tao Saint. It was truly shocking. I didn't expect the gap between you and me to be so big. Sima Xiao was also the #1 genius of the Southern Profound Divine Realm. Now that Su Fong had surpassed her, she naturally felt upset. When she thought about how the Southern Profound Divine Realm was occupied by the outsiders and how even the Southern Profound Daozu had died, Sima Xiao's mood became gloomy again. Su Fong, since I'm homeless, I can only rely on you. You won't reject me, right? Sima Xiao stared at Su Fong, her eyes gleaming. This, you're lecherous by nature. Could it be that you don't like my looks? This, I don't care, I'm Xiao. Xiao was Xiao. Sima Xiao had encountered a great change, and her temperament had also changed. She no longer had any estrangement or guard against Su Fong and directly relied on Su Fong, causing Su Fong to helplessly smile bitterly. We'll be relying on young master Su Fong from now on. The other women also came over and surrounded Su Fong. For a moment, the fragrance was so alluring that it made Su Fong's heart flutter. Sima Xiao looked at Su Fong with an expression that said, "You're really lustful." Su Fong was speechless. He hurriedly sent Sima Xiao and the other female cultivators in a Fuyao cave abode and gave them pills and spirit items to recover. At this time, the auction was nearing its end. The three-eyed black devil old man took out his final trump card. He waved his hand and grabbed at the air, releasing a beam of mystic light. Inside the profound light was a stone. It looked like an egg that had been cut in half. It gave off a milky white glow and was covered with natural marks. It gave off a mysterious and sacred aura. It gave off a feeling of eternity, as if this thing existed with the primal chaos and would never be destroyed. There's such a precious treasure. Exclamations of surprise rang out from the foreign cultivators behind him. That's the immortal heavenly heart stone. The legendary immortal heavenly heart stone that can cultivate an immortal Tao heart. Immediately after, the foreign race cultivators stood up and let out cries of surprise. Hu Pa and the other Tao saints of the 5 divine races also stood up and looked at the stone. Their eyes were full of vigor. The three-eyed black devil race elders said, "That's right. This treasure is the legendary immortal heavenly heart stone." Wow, there was an uproar in the auction house. However, there were also people who didn't know what the immortal heavenly heart stone was and looked at the stone in confusion. Su Fong knew the origin of the immortal heavenly heart stone from the outsiders' discussions. His heart started to beat faster. It turned out that the immortal heavenly heart stone was a precious treasure born in the primal chaos. It was second only to the legendary primordial heavenly treasure. It was said that after fusing with the immortal heavenly heart stone, one could cultivate the legendary immortal Tao heart. What was immortal? It existed with the heavenly Tao and was immortal. The Tao heart was the foundation of all cultivators and outsiders. Only by cultivating the immortal Tao heart could one become a Daozu or even surpass the Daozu. The legendary supreme realm that surpassed the limits of the Daozu was immortal. How could anyone not be jealous of such a treasure? Not to mention the ordinary outsiders. Even the Tao saints and Daozu were eager to get their hands on the immortal heavenly heart stone. Su Feng had been fusing with the ice heart flower all these years. It was very difficult for him to do so. If he wanted to cultivate the immortal Tao heart, he would need tens of millions of years or even longer. Moreover, there was only a slight chance of success. If he had the immortal heavenly heart stone, the chances of him cultivating the immortal Tao heart would be greatly increased. How could he not be jealous? No, that's not the complete immortal heavenly heart stone. It's just a defective one. The immortal heavenly heart stone is a supreme treasure. Once it's damaged, its value will not be high. No wonder the three-eyed black demon race is willing to take out the immortal heavenly heart stone. It's actually a defective one. There were many powerful experts in the auction house. Soon they saw some clues. The burning flames in their hearts were extinguished by more than half. That's right. This immortal heavenly heart stone is indeed a defective one. Otherwise, why will my race be willing to take it out for auction? The three-eyed black demon race elder on the stage admitted. Then, he changed the topic. Although this immortal heavenly heart stone is a defective one, it's still a supreme treasure that surpasses the King Grade Xian Bao. The strongest expert of my race has personally appraised it. There's at least a 30% chance of cultivating the immortal Tao heart after fusing with this treasure. A 30% chance? Such a probability is already shocking. I must get my hands on such a treasure. Whoever wants to compete with me will be my enemy. Let's see who has more immortal stones. The old man from the three-eyed black devil race stirred up the emotions of the foreign cultivators once more. The starting bid is 300 million immortal stones. If you don't have enough immortal stones, you can also use other treasures. Let's begin. The three-eyed black demon race elder said in a deep voice. Just the starting bid was enough to make most of the foreign race cultivators shrink back. Only a dozen people were bidding. The Tao saints of the Hu people, the Yi clan, and the Li clan were also participating. It seemed like they were determined to get the immortal heavenly heart stone. The third prince of the savage dragon race was filled with regret. If he hadn't bought the calamity overcoming talisman, he would have been qualified to compete for the immortal heavenly heart stone. How could he have so many immortal stones now? It's all because of that despicable Iron Tail race. The third prince of the savage dragon race glared at Tu Xiao. His eyes were filled with undisguised killing intent. The price of the immortal heavenly heart stone continued to rise. 800 million immortal stones. Hoopa suddenly called out a sky-high price, making the other foreign race cultivators shrink back. After all, it was a defective immortal heavenly heart stone. Not many people had the courage to take out all their wealth to buy a 30% chance of cultivating the immortal Tao heart. These despicable humans are very rich. Many foreign race cultivators looked at Hoopa and the others with unfriendly gazes. However, when they thought of the Tensei people, many foreign race experts gave up on the idea. Actually, Hoopa didn't have so many immortal stones. He had secretly traded with other god clans and borrowed a large number of immortal stones from them. In addition, he was prepared to sell a few King Grade Xian Bao on him. Only then did he manage to gather so many immortal stones. 800 million immortal stones. Is there a higher bid? The three-eyed black demon race cultivator looked down. Although he wasn't satisfied with the price of the immortal heavenly heart stone, he still didn't have enough immortal heavenly heart stone. 1 billion immortal stones. Tu Xiao, who had been silent all this time, suddenly called out, shocking the entire crowd. Swoosh! 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 Everyone looked at Tu Xiao. The foreign race cultivators looked at him as though he was a nouveau riche. Cooper originally thought that the immortal heavenly heartstone was going to be his. He didn't expect Tu Xiu to raise the price by 200 million immortal stones. He was instantly enraged. After hesitating for a while, Cooper clenched his teeth and said, 1 billion. Tu Xiu said casually, 2 billion. 5 billion immortal stones. I don't have enough immortal stones. I'll owe you for now. In a few years, I'll pay the three-eyed black demon race. Hoopa threw caution to the wind and called out an astronomical price of 5 billion immortal stones. Of course, he couldn't take out so many immortal stones. Even if he sold his life Xian Bao, he still wouldn't be able to take out so many immortal stones. Hoopa was also forced into a corner. It was precisely because his Dao heart wasn't strong enough that he had been shackled at the middle stage of Divine Saint for almost an era. If he couldn't break through, he would forever be stuck at this stage. It wasn't easy for him to come across such an opportunity. How could he not give it his all? Oh, the three-eyed black demon race elder chuckled. Do you think my race will let a human cultivator owe us money? Hoopa snorted. I can't take out so many immortal stones. I don't believe that the Iron-Tail race cultivator can really take out 2 billion immortal stones. The three-eyed black demon race elder looked at Tu Xiu suspiciously. The Iron-Tail race wasn't a powerful race. An ordinary Dao Saint from the Iron-Tail race had already surprised the three-eyed black demon race elder by taking out 100 million immortal stones. How could he take out 2 billion immortal stones? I can't take out so many immortal stones. However, I have treasures. Tu Xiu snorted coldly. He waved his hand and took out a Xianguang. There were hundreds of Xianbao in the Xianguang. They weren't ordinary Xianbao. The lowest quality Xianbao was the best Xianbao used by the foreign race experts. There were also dozens of king-grade Xianbao. One of them was even at the peak of the king grade. Su Feng had killed the foreign race army of 1 million and obtained countless Xianbao. Because the Xianbao of the foreign race could only be used by cultivators of the same race, human cultivators couldn't use it. Most of the Xianbao had been fed to the heaven-swallowing worms by Su Feng. Only the best Xianbao was left. Since they were useless in his hands, he might as well exchange them for the immortal Heaven Heart Stone. He could save a lot of immortal stones. In an instant. Chapter 3103. Since the Iron-Tail race was so rich and not powerful, how could it not attract the greed of the other races? The third prince of the savage flood dragon race hurriedly took out a rune talisman and transmitted his voice to the subordinate who went back to retrieve the divine stones. Ask the experts of the race to come out. As soon as that lowly Iron-Tail race exits Treasure Exchange Mountain, immediately kill him and seize his treasures. Soon, the subordinate replied. Third prince, I also found out some interesting information about that Iron-Tail race expert. The eyes of the savage flood dragon race's third prince gradually lit up. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Tu Xiu acted as if he didn't notice the greedy gazes of the crowd. He asked the three-eyed black devil on the stage, May I ask if my Xianbao is worth 2 billion divine stones? Yes, of course it is. The old man from the three-eyed black demon clan chuckled. He seemed very excited. A broken immortal heavenly heartstone was sold for 2 billion divine stones. This was completely beyond his expectations. Moreover, the Xianbao that Tu Xiu took out could earn him a huge sum of money. How could the three-eyed black devil not be happy? Tu Xiu waved his hand and absorbed all the treasures into his body. Only then did the foreign race cultivators retract their greedy gazes. Everyone, the auction of Treasure Exchange Mountain has come to an end. Those who have bid for treasures, please follow me to the back to hand over your treasures. The three-eyed black devil said loudly. He glanced at Tu Xiu and walked to the back of the stage. A foreign race cultivator from Treasure Exchange Mountain came to Tu Xiu and asked him to go to the back to hand over his treasures. Of course, he was also afraid that Tu Xiu would sneak away. They went to the back of the auction hall. Tu Xiu took out the Xianbao and asked the appraiser of Treasure Exchange Mountain to appraise it. In the end, he chose 10 king-grade Xianbao and more than 100 peak-grade Xianbao. He paid 2 2 billion divine stones for the immortal heavenly heart stone. Su Fang also let Tu Xiu sell the rest of the Xianbao. Another billion divine stones came into his account. Treasure Exchange Mountain gave an extremely low price. It could be said that Treasure Exchange Mountain was black-hearted. However, Su Fang did not care. At any rate, they were all trash in his hands. In the end, they would all be eaten by the heavenly devourer insects. So, he might as well trade them for godstones. Su Fang had originally planned to purchase some pills and spiritual items from the auction house to prepare for his breakthrough to the Tao Saint stage. Tu Xiu reminded in his heart, "Master, you should leave Yi Baoshan as soon as possible. The dark treasures you took out came from the experts of the various clans you killed. If Yi Baoshan investigates the origins of these treasures, then it'll be troublesome." Su Fang's heart skipped a beat. He had neglected this point. Furthermore, many of the experts participating in the auction know me. They will definitely be suspicious. If powerful experts from various clans are attracted, it will be difficult for me to leave Treasure Exchange Mountain. You're right. I was too careless. He immediately got Tu Xiu to leave the Black Palace where the auction house was located and prepared to leave Treasure Exchange Mountain. When he walked out of the palace, the beautiful human lady was waiting for Tu Xiu at the entrance. Tu Xiu said, "It's your good fortune to be able to see me. I'll give you two choices now. Either I give you some of Godstones, or I take you away from Treasure Exchange Mountain. Choose." The three-eyed black demon race would discover the origin of the Xianbao sooner or later. When that happened, they would definitely search for Tu Xiu everywhere. If this lady stayed at Treasure Exchange Mountain, she would be in danger. Although Su Fang was not a good person, he would not implicate others because of himself. Naturally, he would not leave this lady alone. The lady was surprised and delighted. Suddenly, the third prince of the savage dragon race said in a cold and embarrassed voice, "You can't even protect yourself, and you still want to protect a human slave?" Then, more than 10 experts from the savage dragon race quickly surrounded Tu Xiu. Tu Xiu snorted coldly and sucked the beautiful lady into his body. Tu Xiu sneered and said, "What? The savage dragon race doesn't even care about the three-eyed black demon race and dares to plunder my treasures and wealth on Treasure Exchange Mountain?" The third prince of the savage dragon race smiled embarrassedly and said proudly, "You're from the lowly Irontail race. I didn't know that you're actually a powerful person. Tu Xiu, are you going to obediently follow this king? Or do you want me to expose you in front of everyone?" Tu Xiu's expression changed instantly. He did not expect the third prince of the savage dragon race to find out his background. "What do you want?" Tu Xiu asked coldly. In fact, he was stalling for time and creating an opportunity for Su Fang. Inside Tu Xiu's body, Su Fang activated the heaven-piercing Blood King vine with all his might. Strands of blood covered his entire body, covering his skin and face. Even his hair turned into curly strands of blood-red hair. His entire body emitted an evil aura. Then, the heaven-piercing Blood King vine began to wantonly devour the life energy of the foreign race cultivators' corpses and covered the surface of his body. As for Su Fang's human aura, he activated the heavenly secret life shrinking technique to conceal it. At this moment, Su Fang had transformed into a foreign race through and through. Moreover, he was an extremely powerful heaven-piercing Blood King vine that had transformed into a human form. The third prince of the savage dragon race sneered and said, "This king is not interested in your life. He only wants the treasures on your body. Obediently hand over all of them to this king, and this king will not make things difficult for you." Tu Xiu said coldly, "You want to take all of my treasures? You're a junior of the savage dragon race. What a big appetite. Aren't you afraid that you'll be stuffed to death?" The third prince of the savage dragon race smiled proudly and transmitted his voice to Tu Xiu through his nascent spirit. Back then, the various races sent a vanguard army of 1 million soldiers into the 6 heavens of the western profound divine domain of the human race. In the end, the army was completely annihilated. You, Tu Xiu, were one of them. How did you manage to survive? Could it be that you've joined the lowly human race? If I reveal your identity and origin, I'm sure many people will want to know what happened back then from you. Scram! I don't have time to tangle with you. Tu Xiao shouted domineeringly and was about to force his way down the mountain. An expert of the intermediate divine saint realm from the savage dragon race unleashed a burst of divine might and pushed Tu Xiao back. Stop! A cold shout came from the palace. Following that, the three-eyed black devil race elder who was hosting the auction appeared in a flash. The elder looked at the third prince of the savage dragon race and said coldly, "The savage dragon race is getting more and more presumptuous. How dare you make a move on Treasure Exchange Mountain? Don't tell me you don't even respect the three-eyed black devil race." Following that, more than 30 three-eyed black devil experts flashed out of the palace. Among them, there was a powerful expert of the upper divine saint realm. The auction had just ended not long ago. There were still many foreign race cultivators who had not left. The commotion here immediately attracted the attention of many foreign race cultivators, and they all gathered around. Hoopa and the other experts of the human race had just exchanged their godstones for the treasures that had been auctioned earlier. When they saw this scene, they were all shocked and stood aside to watch the commotion. The third prince of the savage dragon race hurriedly explained to the three-eyed black devil elder, "My lord, you've misunderstood. This king wants to capture him not to rob him of his treasures, but to find out the cause of the deaths of tens of thousands of experts from my race." The elder did not believe him. He snorted and said, "Humph, you're just exaggerating. My lord, if this king reveals his true origin, this king wants nothing else but the immortal heavenly heartstone and the dozen or so women from the human race. Speak, my lord. Do you remember that 100,000 years ago, the various races formed an alliance of 1,000,000 soldiers to enter the 6 heavens of the Western Xian divine realm? In the end, they were all annihilated. Even Lord Yushui of the Mayfly race was severely injured. This matter shocked the higher-ups. In the end, they concluded that it was a trap set by the human experts of the Daozu race. Who doesn't know that the alliance of 1,000,000 soldiers was annihilated? What are you trying to do by bringing up this matter again? The third prince of the savage dragon race pointed at Tu Xiao and sneered. His name is Tu Xiao. He was also an expert of the alliance back then. The 1,000,000-strong army was annihilated, but he is still alive and well. He even took out so many divine stones and Xian Bao all at once. Don't you find it strange, my lord? All the foreign race cultivators looked at Tu Xiao, and their expressions changed instantly. Hoopa and the other cultivators of the 5 great god races were also shocked and surprised. The third prince of the savage dragon race became even more pleased with himself after successfully attracting everyone's attention. This king suspects that Tu Xiao is being controlled by a human expert. He must be up to something big by sneaking into Treasure Exchange Mountain. Could those Xian Bao of different races have come from the experts killed by the human race? The three-eyed black devil elder looked at Tu Xiao with all 3 of his eyes. His pupils flashed with a cold light, as if he wanted to see through Tu Xiao. He couldn't find anything unusual about Tu Xiao. The elder shouted at a three-eyed black devil behind him, "Go, quickly investigate the origins of those Xian Bao." Then he waved his hand, and dozens of black devil experts surrounded Tu Xiao from all directions. Now, even an expert of the upper Dao, Saint Realm, would find it difficult to escape from the encirclement. All eyes were fixed on Tu Xiao as if they were afraid that he would disappear into thin air. Tu Xiao smiled embarrassedly and sneered at the three-eyed black devil elder. "The three-eyed black devil wants to steal my treasure. I didn't expect you to come up with such a clumsy excuse. Aren't you afraid of damaging the reputation of Treasure Exchange Mountain?" The elder snorted and said, "This is a serious matter. I have to investigate thoroughly. If you are innocent, I will not make things difficult for you." Tu Xiao said, "What if I can produce evidence to prove that my Xian Bao has other origins?" The three-eyed black devil elder stared at Tu Xiao. "What evidence do you have? This item can prove." Tu Xiao reached out and grabbed it. Countless eyes were focused on Tu Xiao's hand. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Tu Xiao's palm suddenly released a blinding divine light. It was as if a blazing sun had suddenly released its light and instantly lit up the entire treasure exchange mountain. Everyone's eyes were burned, and everything in front of their eyes turned white. They temporarily lost their ability to sense anything. Bright sun, dazzling flash. It turned out that Su Fong was in Tu Xiu's body and had used the bright sun dazzling flash, a divine ability from the Yang transformation art. The bright sun dazzling flash was a divine ability that made use of the profound Yang divine aura to attack the enemy's vision and senses. Although it couldn't kill people, it contained the power to blind people. It could even temporarily cause them to lose their thoughts and senses, turning them blind and deaf for a short period of time. Many of the foreign race experts didn't expect that Tu Xiu would dare to make a move when surrounded by so many experts. They were all caught off guard and were all hit. Su Fong made use of this time to flash out of Tu Xiu's body. Chapter 3104. An illusory blood coffin appeared in Su Fong's right palm, erupting with astonishing sealing and attractive power. The savage flood dragon race's third prince was only at the Dao Profound realm. Under the power of Su Fong's sky coffin, he could not resist at all and was sucked into the blood coffin. Immediately after, Su Fong used the life shrinking technique. Fate controls the workings of heaven. If I'm destroyed, everything will be destroyed. A formless heavenly Dao energy suddenly surged from Su Fong's body. This energy wave severed Su Fong's fate. Even if the foreign race experts present did not lose their senses, they could not see Su Fong's existence. At this moment, Su Fong's fate was blinded by the power of the life shrinking technique, allowing fate to hide Su Fong. Whoosh! Su Fong charged out of the heavy encirclement in a flash and blended into the many foreign race cultivators at the back. Where is he? Where did that Iron Tail race rebel escape to? Damned rebel. When I catch him, I'll pull out his tendons and skin him alive. That rebel captured the third prince. After a moment, some powerful foreign race experts returned to normal. When they could not see Su Fong's figure, all of them turned pale with fright. The other foreign race cultivators were also in a state of panic. No one noticed that a foreign race cultivator with a head full of blood-red hair and blood tattoos had appeared in the crowd. Treasure Exchange Mountain has been sealed. He can't possibly escape. All of you, stay where you are and accept interrogation. Otherwise, you'll be killed without mercy. The three-eyed black demon elder shouted coldly. The panicked crowd immediately quieted down. Next, the three-eyed black demon cultivators began to search Treasure Exchange Mountain without restraint. Unexpectedly, Tu Xiu seemed to have completely evaporated. How could they find any trace of him? Not only Tu Xiu's trace, but even his aura could not be detected. The three-eyed black demon expert concluded that Tu Xiu must have an accomplice. Thus, he began to interrogate all the foreign race cultivators left behind on Treasure Exchange Mountain, including Hu Pe and the others. At this time, Su Fong appeared in the state of the heaven-piercing Blood King Rotan. Even a powerhouse like Daozu would find it difficult to see through him. Besides, the heaven-piercing Blood King Rotan was a top-notch creature among the non-human kind. The three-eyed black devil didn't dare to be too presumptuous in front of him. Instead, they were polite to him, which made it even harder for them to find out more about him. After Su Fong easily passed the inspection, he did not leave Treasure Exchange Mountain. Instead, he spent 1,000,000 divine stones to rent a new cave residence on Treasure Exchange Mountain. Over the years, the three-eyed black devil race had investigated every corner of Treasure Exchange Mountain and every non-human cultivator. There were even Daozu experts from the Savage Flood Dragon clan who had personally rushed over and thoroughly searched the Treasure Exchange Mountain. In the end, they still found nothing. Little did they know that the person they were looking for was currently living peacefully in a cave residence on Treasure Exchange Mountain. The news quickly spread among the non-human kind. Since this was related to the death of millions of non-humankind warriors, the high-level non-humankind leaders were all shocked. In the end, they still couldn't find Tu Xiu's whereabouts. The matter could only be left unsettled and became an unsolved case. In the depths of the cave residence, Su Fong, in the form of the heaven-piercing Blood King Rot Tan, sat cross-legged in the formation. Blood vines extended from his body and waved around him, wantonly devouring elixirs and spiritual items. It looked extremely terrifying. In Su Fong's Jiuquan Dao Palace, Su Fong released the Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince from the blood coffin. You're a human cultivator. Seeing the body formed by Su Fong's consciousness, the Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince was shocked. Then he clenched his teeth. That lowly Irontail clan really colluded with humans. Su Fong shook his head and sneered. Now that he was about to die, the Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince was still so arrogant. Regardless of whether it was the human race or the non-human kind, there were such idiots who relied on their power to do whatever they wanted. Human, how many divine stones do you need before you're willing to release this king's son? The Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince shouted, still as domineering as ever. Su Fong could not be bothered with him. He waved his hand and took out a rune talisman from the third prince's body. It was the Calamity Nullifying Talisman. The reason why Su Fong captured the Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince was because of this Calamity Nullifying Talisman. Since the talisman could withstand an all-out attack from an expert from Daozu and help him pass the tribulation, even if the Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince did not come to him, Su Fong would never let him go. Then, with a thought, Su Fong moved Tu Xiu over. I'll leave him to you to deal with. As Su Fong nodded, the figure formed by his consciousness disappeared without a trace. Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince, you didn't expect to fall into my hands one day, did you? Tu Xiu looked at the Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince and smiled coldly. You lowly Irontail clan, if you dare to kill this king's son, the Savage Flood Dragon clan will definitely exterminate your Irontail clan. The Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince was really reckless. He actually dared to threaten Tu Xiu. Whoosh! Tu Xiu swung his tail, and the tip of his tail pierced through the Savage Flood Dragon clan's third prince's head like a sharp sword. Su Fong checked his gains and was overjoyed. He was beaming with joy. An immortal heavenly heart stone, a calamity nullifying talisman, and even saved Sima Xiao Xiao and a dozen beauties. He had only paid 100 million divine stones and a bunch of useless xianbao. It could be said that he had made a huge profit. Su Fong kept the calamity nullifying talisman carefully. This was something that could save his life in the future. The immortal heavenly heart stone is really a good treasure. After taking out the immortal heavenly heart stone and sensing its eternal and immortal aura, Su Fong was excited again. Fusing with the immortal heavenly heart stone was very simple. It was similar to fusing with the ice heart flower. He just had to place it near his Dao heart and let his Dao heart absorb the immortal heavenly heart stone's aura continuously before fusing with it. If I can cultivate the immortal Dao heart and have a longevity lamp, I will have a chance to become a supreme Daozu or even surpass the Daozu and achieve immortality. The Dao heart was the foundation of a cultivator's cultivation. Without a strong Dao heart, no matter how talented one was, how many treasures and resources one had, everything would be useless. Only by cultivating the immortal Dao heart could one become a supreme Daozu or even an immortal. Although the immortal heavenly heart stone was incomplete, Su Fong had the ice heart flower. The possibility of cultivating the immortal Dao heart was greatly increased. Even if he was not 100% confident, he still had a 70% to 80% chance of success. However, the cultivation of the Dao heart was not something that could be achieved overnight. Even with the ice heart flower and the immortal heavenly heart stone, it would still take a long time to settle down and slowly fuse with them. Moreover, the Dao heart needed to be sharpened continuously so that the ice heart flower and the immortal heavenly heart stone could fuse better with the Dao heart. He placed the immortal heavenly heart stone beside the 7-colored Vajra Dao heart. As the Dao heart trembled, the immortal heavenly heart stone seemed to resonate with it. Strands of immortal energy were extracted from it and absorbed by the Dao heart, disappearing without a trace. After allowing the Dao heart to absorb the energy of the ice heart flower and the immortal heavenly heart stone, Su Fong began to focus on devouring pills and spirit items. He wanted to adjust himself to the peak state before the battle started. A thought entered Fu Yao's cave and communicated with Sima Xiao Xiao. Su Fong told Sima Xiao Xiao about his plan to enter the Western Black Mountain. I might not return from the Western Black Mountain. You will also be unlucky if you follow me. I will give you some resources and send you away from the foreign races. After that, you will try to find a way to other divine regions. However, Sima Xiao Xiao rejected him decisively. The southern profound divine region has been invaded by the foreign races. Now, even the Western Black Mountain cannot be protected. Where can I escape to? If you die on this trip to the Western Black Mountain, I will die with you. The other female cultivators also did not want to leave Su Fong. After being captured by the foreign races for so many years, they were scared out of their wits. They were afraid that they would fall into the hands of the foreign races again. At that time, it would be a fate worse than death. Then, Sima Xiao Xiao looked at Su Fong and snorted. You are such a pervert. Are you really willing to let us leave? You saved our lives. Now, no matter what you ask of us, we will agree to it. Su Fong smiled helplessly. He had no choice but to end this conversation. After that, Su Fong cultivated in his cave while paying attention to the movements of the Western Black Mountain. Just as Su Fong was waiting for an opportunity to sneak into the Western Black Mountain, the inside of the mountain was already gloomy and gloomy. At this time, the defensive formation of the Western Black Mountain was fully activated. The foreign races would not be able to break through the Western Black Mountain in a short time. However, every cultivator of the Western Black Mountain was very clear. If no miracle happened, the Western Black Mountain was destined to be broken through by the foreign races. Everyone would not be able to escape death. Strange Silence Peak. More than 1,000 cultivators sat cross-legged in various formations. They emitted their cultivation to maintain the operation of the formation. The formation on Strange Silence Peak was connected to the main formation of the entire Western Black Mountain. It was equivalent to borrowing the strength of all the cultivators of the Western Black Mountain and the origin of the Western Black Mountain to maintain the entire defensive formation. The defensive power of the formation was truly astonishing. Unless one had the strength to destroy the Western Black Mountain in one strike, it would be difficult to break through the formation. The Western Black Mountain had a strong foundation. Even a Daozu expert could not destroy the Western Black Mountain in one strike, unless one surpassed the Daozu and was a legendary existence. Goddess Luo sat cross-legged in one of the formations. Her young face was as pale as paper, and her aura was weak. Ling Xiaozi passed through the formation and cupped his fists at Goddess Luo. Martial Ant Luo, go rest. It's my turn. In terms of age, Ling Xiaozi could be considered Goddess Luo's ancestor. In terms of strength, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. However, because of Su Fong, Ling Xiaozi had to call Goddess Luo Martial Ant and respectfully bow when they met. Goddess Luo sighed. I'm too useless as your martial ant. Right now, I can barely be of use. When the foreign races attack the Western Black Mountain and the formation is fully activated, I won't be able to be of much use. If it wasn't for the fact that the punishment hall went too far, why would Martial Ant help? Ling Xiaozi gritted his teeth at the mention of the punishment hall. It turned out that Su Fong had asked Ling Xiaozi and the other cultivators of the Western Black Mountain to return early, but the result was not as simple as Su Fong had imagined. After returning to the Western Black Mountain, Ling Xiaozi gave the jade slip Su Fong gave him to the Wine Saint and had him personally give it to the sovereign. Little did they know, the sovereign had not only strengthened the defenses of the Western Black Mountain, but he had also suppressed the entire matter. Chapter 3105. Actually, the Western Mystery Mountain sovereign had made this decision out of helplessness. The foreign races had invaded the Western Mystery Divine Domain, and the calamity was imminent. The Western Mystery Mountain needed the help of experts. The human experts of the other divine domains could not be counted on, so they could only rely on the Western Mystery Mountain's own strength. The Great Elder of Punishment and the Peak Master Ningce were the top experts of the Western Mystery Mountain, especially the Great Elder of Punishment. He was a powerful half-step Dao ancestor and could be considered one of the pillars of the Western Mystery Mountain. If the Punishment Elder and Ningxue Peak Master were punished for framing Su Fong, once the foreign races arrived, how could they help the Western Mystery Mountain? At that time, if they lost these two experts, in addition to the cultivators they nurtured, the Western Mystery Mountain's strength would definitely be greatly reduced. With no other choice, the sovereign could only suppress this matter for the sake of the overall situation. He planned to wait for Su Fong to return before trying to appease Su Fong. Who would have thought that Su Fong would actually disappear without a trace? When he left the Western Mystery Mountain, Su Fong had left behind the aura of his primordial spirit in the punishment hall. Thus, it could be determined that he had not died. However, he had never returned to the Western Mystery Mountain. The sovereign suspected that Su Fong had been captured by foreign experts. After that, the foreign races began to invade the Western Mystery Divine Domain, and people gradually forgot about Su Fong. The subordinates that Su Fong had left behind in Strange Silence Peak met with great misfortune. In the past, when Su Fong was here, no one dared to touch a single blade of grass on Strange Silence Peak. Now that Su Fong was no longer here, there would naturally be people who would hit a person who was down, especially the punishment hall. Su Fong had offended the Punishment Elder, so how could the cultivators of Strange Silence Peak have a good ending? The activation of the Western Mystery Mountain's great defensive formation required cultivators to continuously activate the formation of the 1,080 peaks. On Strange Silence Peak, all the Dao Profound Realm cultivators had been taken away by Su Fong. What remained were the weaker Dao Lords, and even many Dao True Realm cultivators. And the Punishment Hall deliberately did not send more people to Strange Silence Peak, causing the cultivators of Strange Silence Peak to bear a huge burden. If not for the Wine Saint and En Patian sending experts from the Wine Saint Peak and the Heaven-Breaking Peak to help, the cultivators of the Strange Silence Peak would have already died from exhaustion. I wonder how Su Fong is doing. Goddess Luo wiped the sweat off her face and sighed heavily. Her clear eyes were filled with worry. Ling Xiaozi urged the formation as he said, "Martial Uncle Su Fong is a person of great stature. Naturally, nothing will happen to him. It's good that he's not in the Western Black Mountain. He'll be able to avoid this calamity." Thinking of the Sichuan Mountain's current situation and her future fate, Goddess Luo's expression became even more gloomy. Suddenly, boom, boom, the great array above the Western Black Mountain suddenly gave off a great disturbance, shaking more than 10 times in succession. The grand array abruptly activated, causing Ling Xiaozi's cultivation base to leak out without end. At the same time, he was shaken to the point of spitting out a mouthful of blood. The same thing happened in every mountain and every formation. The outsiders have begun to attack the Western Black Mountain. Looking up at the sky, Goddess Luo's eyes were filled with fear and despair. Not only Goddess Luo, but almost every Western Black Mountain cultivator's hearts suddenly sank. But to everyone's surprise, after the great array started to move, there was no more movement. Inside the cave abode on Treasure Change Mountain, Su Fong suddenly took out a rune talisman. A voice came from the rune talisman. "My lord, the Sacred Race's Daozu experts are attacking the Western Black Mountain. Do you want to come out and take a look?" It turned out that Su Fong had already bribed an outsider's cultivator on Treasure Change Mountain to keep an eye on the Western Black Mountain and warn him when the outsiders attacked the Western Black Mountain. The outsiders are finally going to attack. Su Fong's heart suddenly rose to the top. He quickly left the cave abode and left Treasure Change Mountain through the mountain gate. After the incident with Tu Xiao, Treasure Change Mountain had been sealed for 100 years. Later, they could not find any clues and reopened the mountain gate. Su Fong rented a cave abode on Treasure Change Mountain and could naturally enter and exit as he pleased. He came to the void. Su Fong used his sensing power and looked over. In the sky above the Western Black Mountain, there were hundreds of outsiders standing in the air. The auras of these foreign tribe experts were extremely powerful. They were all Dao saints and above. Among those experts, Su Fong saw Yu Shui, an alien race expert whose strength had reached the half-step Tao ancestor level. Yu Shui's soul had been half devoured by the longevity lamp, but he was still alive. Su Fong was not surprised, and was also shocked by the outsider's remarkable power. Given Yu Shui's strength, his status among the outsiders must be extremely high. But at this moment, he was like a follower, standing respectfully behind the outsiders. Not only Yu Shui, but the hundreds of Dao saints of the outsiders were all the same. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. Among the outsiders, there were 16 outsiders who were as powerful as the Daozu. Among them, there were 3 experts. If Su Fong had not seen their existence, he would not have been able to sense their auras. They were 3 peerless experts at the peak of the Tao ancestor realm. The overall strength of the foreign races is actually so powerful. Seeing so many foreign race experts, Su Fong felt an intense shock in his heart, and his heart sank to the bottom of the valley. And this was not all the outsiders' experts. There were many Daozu experts who had not appeared. There might even be immortal realm experts who were more powerful than the Daozu experts hidden in the outsiders' army. And in the Western Black Mountain, there was not even a single Daozu. How could it not be defeated? After looking carefully for a while, Su Fong found that the outsiders did not seem to be attacking the Western Black Mountain. Su Fong was surprised and looked at the Western Black Mountain. At this time, the outsiders' army had all retreated tens of thousands of miles. The evil aura and death aura that had enveloped the Western Black Mountain had disappeared. Although they could not see inside, they could clearly see the powerful boundary outside. Su Fong quickly noticed some clues. On the outer boundary of the Western Mystery Mountain, 12 lush green trees had appeared. They were obviously not ordinary trees. They emanated an ancient and eternal aura, and they were slightly similar to Su Fong's longevity lamp. Surprisingly, those 12 trees were primordial heavenly treasures. A young outsider's woman in a green robe was in the air. She was one of the peak Daozu realm experts. She was ceaselessly using her thoughts to control the trees, causing them to grow madly. In less than the time for an incense stick to burn, the trees had swiftly grown from their initial height of 100 meters to over 3 kilometers tall. Only then did they gradually stop growing madly. The roots of the trees were attached to the boundary outside the Western Black Mountain. Countless roots were madly seeping into the boundary, and they were wantonly devouring the energy of the formation. Su Fong instantly understood. The outsiders' army is unable to break through the Western Black Mountain's defenses in a short period of time, and they don't want to waste time and energy in the Western Black Mountain. So, they're using primordial heavenly treasures to break through the formation. The Western Black Mountain is in danger now. After understanding the outsiders' plan, Su Fong was at a loss of what to do. With so many outsiders experts, a mere upper Dao void realm cultivator like him was like an ant. What could he do? Waves of helplessness and despair surged in Su Fong's heart. After watching for a while, Su Fong couldn't think of any good ideas for the time being, and he returned to his cave abode in the Treasure Change Mountain with a heart full of worry. In the sky above the Western Black Mountain, the green-robed outsider's woman stopped controlling the 12 primordial heavenly treasures. Her green face was slightly pale. Obviously, controlling the primordial heavenly treasures had consumed a lot of her energy. A Daozu from the Black Demon race who had a bloodhorn on his head and was shrouded in black energy laughed cruelly. With the precious tree Divine Mother's help, breaking through the Western Black Mountain is just around the corner, as expected of the strongest expert of the heavenly tree race. The Western Black Mountain's tortoiseshell is something that we can't do anything to even if we join forces. The precious tree Divine Mother can easily break through it. The 12 primordial heavenly treasures are indeed worthy of being called primordial heavenly treasures. They're so powerful. The other Daozu experts also praised the outsider's woman. My heavenly tree race hates killing the most. This time, if it wasn't for that person personally speaking, why would I attack the human race? The outsider's woman called the precious tree Divine Mother coldly said. When she mentioned that person, fear and reverence appeared in the eyes of all the outsider's experts. The precious tree divine mother continued. Before coming to the human world, the sage of my race had calculated for me that I will find a suitable successor on this trip to the human world. This is also the reason why I came to the human world. The Daozu from the black demon race asked in surprise. I heard that the precious tree divine mother has been looking for a successor, but it has been to no avail. I wonder which race's genius is qualified to become the successor of the precious tree divine mother. The precious tree divine mother said, according to my calculations, my successor is not among you, but has some karma with the human race. The human race? The human race is such a low-level life form. Who is qualified to become the successor of the sacred sovereign? Could it be that the sage of the heavenly tree race made a mistake in his calculations? The outsiders' Daozu experts were all surprised. The precious tree divine mother was a powerful Daozu of the heavenly tree race. Moreover, she had a primordial heavenly treasure, so she was very famous among the outsiders. No one from the heavenly tree race dared to provoke her. Because the grand Tao that the precious tree divine mother grasped was very strange and required a special physique to cultivate, it was very difficult for her to find successor. If one could become the successor of the precious tree divine mother, it could be said that they had reached the heavens in a single step. Many outsiders would scramble for this chance. Who would have thought that the successor of the precious tree divine mother could be a human? How could the outsiders' experts not be surprised? Don't look down on the human race. Have you all forgotten that that person is from the human race? The precious tree divine mother mentioned that person again, causing the Daozu experts to quickly shut their mouths. They didn't dare to show the slightest disrespect in their words or even in their hearts. My precious tree only needs a few hundred years to consume more than half of the power of the Western Mystery Mountains formation. At that time, you will be able to easily break the formation. Remember, after breaking through the Western Mystery Mountain, let me first search for the person I'm looking for. The precious tree divine mother said in a deep voice. Such a small matter. How can I not agree? The Daozu of the black demon race laughed strangely again. Time passed day by day. The roots of the 12 precious trees finally penetrated the formation and started to crazily devour the power of the Western Mystery Mountain's defensive formation. No matter how hard the Western Mystery Mountain cultivators tried, they couldn't stop the loss of power. Even the origin energy of the Western Mystery Mountain started to quickly disappear. On the main peak of the Western Mystery Mountain, in the palace, the sovereign and the other Tao saints were all gathered here. Everyone, is there really nothing else you can do? The sovereign's eyes were blood red and filled with endless despair as he looked at the other Tao saints. The sentencing elder sighed and said, it's a primordial heavenly treasure that's devouring the formation's power. Unless there's a primordial heavenly treasure that can restrain the precious trees or an expert stronger than the Daozu, who has the ability to stop it. These words caused waves of helpless and hopeless sighs to resound in the palace. There was no way to reverse the situation. Chapter 3106. The palace was silent for a long time. The wine saint's voice broke the silence. What's the use of worrying now? We can only fight to the death with the other races. What's there to be afraid of? Patian also shouted, the day the Western Mystery Mountain is breached is the day we fight to the death with the other races. The sovereign's eyes also became resolute. Since that's the case, we can only fight to the death. Fight to the death? The head elder of punishments and Ningtsue, peak master, looked at each other and sneered in their hearts at the same time. Ibao Mountain. Inside the cave, Su Fong pondered bitterly and deduced repeatedly before he finally made an extremely bold decision. Even if Master comes personally, he won't be able to resolve the Western Mystery Divine region's current crisis. There's only one way, and that is to destroy the primordial heavenly treasures that are swallowing the Western Mystery Mountain's defensive array. Su Fong planned to destroy the 12 treasure trees that were swallowing the Western Mystery Mountain's defensive array. How difficult was it to destroy a primordial heavenly treasure? Even a Daozu expert wouldn't be able to do anything to a primordial heavenly treasure, let alone Su Fong, who was only at the upper void stage. What was more, the 12 treasure trees were activated by an expert at the peak of the Tao ancestor of the alien tribe. They were not like Su Fong's longevity lamp. Even if Su Fong used all his strength, he could barely activate them. Su Fong estimated that even a legendary existence that surpassed the Tao Lord level would not be able to destroy the 12 treasure trees directly. However, Su Fong had an ultimate treasure that could even swallow a primordial heavenly treasure. The heaven-swallowing insect. The heaven-swallowing insect was a glutton. It could even swallow the longevity lamp, so it could definitely swallow the 12 treasure trees. Su Fong didn't plan to destroy all 12 treasure trees. He only wanted to damage them so that they couldn't continue swallowing the Western Mystery Mountain's defensive array. Although this idea was feasible, it was difficult to realize. The 12 treasure trees were the primordial heavenly treasures of a top Daozu expert. How could they be swallowed by the heaven-swallowing insect so easily? Now that the 12 treasure trees had become the focus of many experts, the heaven-swallowing insect would be detected before it could even get close. Once it was discovered by that woman, not only would Su Fong's plan fail, but he would also have to face the fury of a top Daozu expert. Although Su Fong had great confidence in his own strength, facing an expert at the peak of the Tao ancestor, just thinking about it made Su Fong shudder with fear and trepidation. I have to think of a way to get close to the 12 treasure trees. Su Fong began to think about how he could approach the primordial heavenly treasure. Su Fong released the heaven-swallowing insect and had it swallow him into its stomach. Then the heaven-swallowing insect shrunk to the size of a fingernail and disappeared into the void with a whoosh. One after another, the treasure ships shuttled back and forth between the treasure trees. No one noticed that a small black beetle had landed at the bottom of a treasure ship that was flying toward the treasure tree. It then silently bit through the defenses and burrowed into the treasure ship. The treasure ship landed on the treasure tree. The heaven-swallowing insect quietly burrowed out of the treasure ship and quickly burrowed into the treasure tree. In this way, Su Fong used the heaven-swallowing insect to penetrate deep into a treasure tree that was the closest to the Western Black Mountain. Su Fong sensed that there were many treasure tree experts on the treasure tree. There was even a peerless expert at the height of Daozu. He didn't dare to be careless. He had the heaven-swallowing insect hide underground and look for an opportunity to approach the 12 treasure trees. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The heaven-swallowing insect burrowed under a palace. When Su Fong sensed the interior of the treasure tree, there were several auras inside the treasure tree. They actually caused the Heaven's Secret Life shrinking technique to flash rapidly. The auras of the Tao characters formed several clear figures in Su Fong's mind. He didn't expect them to be Hupa, the Yi race's Tao Saint, and the experts of the other 5 god races. What a coincidence! They actually came to the treasure tree where the cultivators of the 5 god races resided in. Hupa and the others were able to have a treasure tree among the treasure tree army. It was clear that the treasure tree experts didn't treat them as ordinary humans. I wonder why the experts of the 5 god races suddenly came to the Western Black Mountain when the Western Black Mountain is about to be breached. I have to go and sense Su Fong projected his sensing power. He had to find out why Hupa and the others had come to the Western Black Mountain. The Treasure Tree Divine Mother has activated the primordial heavenly treasure. The Western Black Mountain won't be able to hold on for much longer. This is a good opportunity. We can only successfully get those things if the Western Black Mountain cultivators are forced into a corner. I'm just afraid that the Western Black Mountain cultivators would rather destroy those things than agree to our terms. Don't leak the news and let the foreign races know. In another few decades, the Western Mystery Mountain's Great Defensive Formation will probably be broken. Before the Great Defensive Formation is broken, go to the Western Mystery Mountain and bargain with the sovereign of the Western Mystery Mountain. I don't believe that he won't agree. After listening for a while, Su Fong finally understood. It turned out that Hu Pa and the others had come to the Western Black Divine Domain to take advantage of the situation and extort something extremely important from the Western Black Mountain. As for what it was that the five god races valued so much, Hu Pa and the other Dao saints were very cautious and didn't mention it. However, Su Fong finally found a chance to get close to the treasure tree. Since Hu Pa and the others wanted to go to the Western Black Mountain, they would definitely pass by the 12 treasure trees. They only needed an instant to let the heaven-swallowing insect enter the treasure tree. Su Fong hid under the treasure tree. About 3 years later, Hu Pa and the other Dao saints left the treasure tree and went to visit a Dao zoo of the foreign race. They left behind a few Dao Void Realm cultivators to guard the treasure tree. Su Fong ordered the heaven-swallowing insect to quietly burrow into the room of a Yi clan cultivator. He bit open a hole in the restrictions and rocks underground and then burrowed into the room from the ground. Whoosh! The moment Su Fong flew out of the heaven-swallowing insect's mouth, he immediately activated the heavenly coffin and released a shadow of a blood coffin, which immediately sealed the Dao Void Realm cultivator's body. Immediately after, Su Fong activated the life shrinking technique. His Dao rune aura condensed into an illusory thread and fell into the Yi clan cultivator's body with a whoosh, shackling his fate. The Yi clan cultivator's eyes revealed surprise and fear. Shortly after, the power of fate controlled his fate. He was like a marionette, obediently being controlled by Su Fong. He looked docile and submissive. Just like that, Su Fong easily controlled the Yi clan cultivator with the life-pulling karma thread. Then, Su Fong put away the heaven-swallowing insect and entered the Dao palace of the Yi clan cultivator. When Hu Pa and the other Dao saints of the five divine races returned, they did not notice at all. They did not even dream that Su Fong was hiding beside them. About 30 years later, Hu Pa and the other cultivators of the five divine races left the treasure tree and flew towards the Xixian Mountain. The Yi clan void Dao cultivator controlled by Su Fong also followed along. Then, he flew at the back of the group without leaving a trace. The cultivators of the five divine races had obviously received permission from the foreign races' higher-ups. The group flew towards the Xixian Mountain without any obstruction. They arrived above the Xixian Mountain's barrier. After all these years of frenzied devouring by the 12 treasured trees, more than half of the Xixian Mountain's defensive power had been depleted. The formation was constantly collapsing and disappearing. It was obvious that it would not last much longer. A primordial heavenly treasure. It really is a primordial heavenly treasure. When they passed by one of the treasure trees, Su Fong sensed the aura of the treasured tree through the Yi clan cultivator that was being controlled. He was greatly shocked. The heaven-swallowing insect also became excited and restless. It looked as if it could not wait to burrow out of the Dao Palace. Hu Pa and the other cultivators of the five divine races looked at the giant tree and felt its shocking aura. They were all shocked and in awe. A primordial heavenly treasure. This is a real, primordial heavenly treasure. The foreign race has a primordial heavenly treasure. How can the Xixian Mountain not be destroyed? If the higher-ups of the Xixian Mountain are tactful this time, the five divine races will also be able to obtain a primordial heavenly treasure. When we are able to use the power of a primordial heavenly treasure, it will be the day that the five divine races rise to power. Hu Pa and the other Dao saints communicated in secret. Suddenly, the Yi clan cultivator at the back seemed to have gone mad as he pounced towards the treasure tree. Hu Pa's expression changed, and he quickly shouted for him to stop. But he was still one step too late. Before Hu Pa could stop him, a powerful intent descended on the Yi clan cultivator, instantly destroying his Dao heart and soul. He died on the spot. Humans, are you trying to steal my treasured tree? The precious tree mother's voice was filled with murderous intent. Hu Pa and the others trembled. Under the might of a peak powerful being from Daozu, they had lost all ability to resist. Even a Dao saint was as small as an ant. We are subordinates of the eternal race. We didn't mean to offend your excellency. That clansman was oppressed by the supreme might of the treasure, causing him to lose his mind. Please forgive him, Your Excellency. Hoopa hurriedly kowtowed, and the others followed suit. Humph, the precious tree mother snorted coldly. That terrifying intent disappeared without a trace. Only then did the cultivators from the 5 god families stand up as if they had been pardoned. They were all terrified as if they had just walked past the edge of death. Hoopa glared at the Tao Saint of the Yi clan. Your Yi clan almost ruined everything and even dragged me down. The Tao Saint of the Yi clan was also confused. That person was a very steady person, and he was quite powerful. Who would have thought that he would suddenly go mad? Be careful. If something like that happens again, I will kill him. Hoopa glanced at the other cultivators from the 5 god families. After that accident, the cultivators from the 5 god families became much more cautious as they fearfully crossed the area covered by the treasure tree. What no one saw was that when the Yi clan cultivator went mad, the Heaven Devourer insect was shrouded by the destiny power of the life-shrinking technique. Its presence was cut off, and its destiny was blinded. It flashed and landed on a leaf of the treasured tree, and then quickly went into the dense leaves. Everyone's attention was attracted by the Yi clan cultivator. No one would have thought that the Yi clan cultivator did not go mad, but was controlled by Su Fong. His actions were only used by Su Fong to divert everyone's attention. Chapter 3107. In the palace on the main peak of Xian Mountain, the sovereign gathered all the peak masters for a meeting and prepared to fight to the death. The atmosphere in the palace was solemn and solemn. Suddenly, the sovereign's divine light changed slightly. He grabbed with his hand, and a beam of divine light appeared from the void. The sovereign's expression became strange. The wine saint asked, "Lord Sovereign, what is it?" The sovereign said slowly, "The elder guarding the array outside sent a message saying that someone wants to see me outside the array." "Outside the array? Is it the alien race?" The wine saint asked in surprise. Then his eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Did the alien race send someone to persuade us to surrender?" The sovereign shook his head and said, "Not the alien race, but the experts of the 5 middle Xian god races." The giants of Xian Mountain were all surprised and shocked, but the Ningtsue peak master and the head elder of punishments had hidden joy in their eyes. The wine saint's face was filled with murderous intent. Xian Mountain is surrounded by the alien race. How did the 5 middle Xian god races get through the encirclement of the alien race and come out of Xian Mountain? Could it be the 5 middle Xian god races have surrendered to the alien race? Patian said hatefully, "The alien race invaded Xian divine region, and the Xian world did not help. Xian Mountain is in a desperate situation, but the 5 middle Xian god races have sent people to Xian Mountain. There must be a conspiracy." The head elder of punishment said, "Xian Mountain is already in such a situation. What conspiracy is there to be afraid of? We will know the intentions of the 5 middle Xian god races after we go out and see." The sovereign and the other giants of Xian Mountain released their thoughts and turned into doppelgangers to leave the main peak. They passed through the defensive array and appeared outside the array. They took a look. Hoopa and the other Tao Saints of the middle Xian god races and more than a dozen Tao Void Realm cultivators stood in the air outside the array. What surprised the sovereign and the others was that other than the cultivators of the 5 middle Xian god races, they did not see any other alien race cultivators. Hoopa and the other experts looked down at the leaders of the Western Mystery Mountain from the sky. Their expressions were arrogant, and their eyes were filled with disdain. They all looked high and mighty. The avatar formed by the sovereign's thoughts said, "I didn't think that the 5 god races of Middle Xian would submit to the other races and willingly become their slaves." Hoopa smiled embarrassedly and said proudly, "How can the 5 god kind submit to those low-grade, non-humankind beings? The Xian Mountain has been besieged and news has been cut off. I'm sure you still don't know that Lord Xian Zheng and the 5 god clans of Zhongxian have found a pure world holy land in the outer realm primal chaos, and even received the protection of the Tensei people of the peerless god clan." The sovereign raised his eyebrows. "Tensei people? Xianzheng and the 5 god-level clans have joined the Tensei people? Hupai said proudly. The Tensei people are a powerful race from the chaos outside the realm. They are not something that the three-eyed Black Devil race and the savage Flood Dragon race can compare with. Becoming a vassal race of the Tensei people is the fortune of the 5 god-level clans. From now on, the 5 god-level clans don't have to worry about being bullied by the other races, and the human race can continue. The Wine Saint sneered. I thought the 5 god-level clans had found a way out, but it turns out that you still betrayed the human race and joined the other races, becoming their slaves. The Yi Clan Dao Saint shouted domineeringly. Not every race has the right to become the slaves of the Tensei people. To be able to rely on the Tensei people, the 5 god-level clans of Middle Xian have the strength to be valued by the Tensei people. Plus, becoming a vassal race of the Tensei people is much better than being killed by the other races. Patian sneered disdainfully. Shameless. The sovereign waved his hand and asked, Speak, what is the purpose of the 5 god-level clans of Middle Xian coming to the Xian mountain this time? Hoopa smiled embarrassedly. Lord Sovereign is straightforward, then this seat will get straight to the point. We came this time to make a deal with the Xian mountain. The sovereign snorted. A deal? The 5 god-level clans just want to take advantage of the situation and get some benefits from the Xian mountain. Speak, what deal? The 5 god-level clans tried their best to fight for the three-eyed Black Devil race and the other races. With the other races' agreement, the 5 god-level clans can take away 10,000 cultivators from a Xian mountain. This way, the Xian mountain can preserve some vitality. Hupo's words surprised and delighted the sovereign of the Xian mountain and the other big shots. These big shots were not afraid of death, but the destruction of a Xian mountain and the end of their inheritance was something no one wanted to see. Now that the 5 god-level clans could take away 10,000 Xian cultivators, it meant that the inheritance of the Xian mountain could continue. How could they not be surprised? The Wine Saint knew what the 5 god-level clans were like and sneered. When did the 5 god-level clans of Middle Xian become so benevolent? Even if the 5 god-level clans really want to do this, why would the other races agree? The Yi Clan Dao Saint said proudly, the other races can refuse to give face to the 5 god-level clans, but the three-eyed Black Devil race and the other races have to give face to the Tensei people. Speak, what do the 5 god-level clans want from the Xian mountain? The sovereign's heart was moved. Once the Xian mountain was breached, everything would be gone. Now that there was a chance for the Xian mountain to preserve its vitality, what conditions would they not agree to? Hoopa looked at the sovereign and said slowly, the 5 god-level clans only have 2 conditions. In the Chaos Tide, there was once a top expert of the foreign race Daozu trying to reach the legendary immortal realm. After he failed, he said some thoughts and left behind a time mirage. The first condition of the 5 god-level clans is this time mirage. All the big shots of Xian were disappointed when they heard this condition. The sovereign grimaced. You were all present at the time. How can ordinary cultivators comprehend the thoughts of a top expert of the Daozu trying to reach the immortal realm? Even I can't remember the slightest bit of information. What do you want the Xian mountain to find that time mirage? You are asking the Xian mountain for that time mirage. You are asking for too much. Hoopa sneered disdainfully. The Xian mountain can hide it from others, but it cannot hide it from the 5 god-level clans or the foreign race experts. The sovereign asked in surprise, What do you mean? Hoopa snorted. According to what I know, the Xian Daozu went to the chaos outside to try to reach the immortal realm because he obtained that time mirage. The foreign races were worried that the Xian Daozu would really take that step, so they attacked the Xian Divine Realm after conquering the Southern Profound Divine Realm. The sovereign's sharp gaze swept over the other big shots of the Xian mountain, especially the head elder of punishment. Only the 3 half-step Daozu of the Xian mountain and Su Fong knew that the Xian Daozu had gone to the chaos outside. The sovereign, the sword sovereign, and Su Fong could not have leaked this information to the outside world. Also, the sovereign knew that the head elder of punishment was secretly colluding with the 5 god-level clans. Now that the five god clans knew about this, other than the great elder of punishment, no one else could have leaked this information. What surprised the sovereign and the other big shots of a Shishian mountain was that the foreign races had attacked the Shishian divine realm because they were afraid that the Shishian Daozu would succeed in his breakthrough. Once the Shishian Daozu took that step, what was there to fear from the foreign races? The sovereign also realized that the Shishian Daozu was in danger. The foreign race experts must be searching for him in the chaos outside to kill him before he succeeded in his breakthrough, or at least prevent him from reaching the immortal realm. The head elder of punishment should be killed. Regret and strong killing intent rose in the sovereign's heart, but since things had reached this point, he could only endure it. The sovereign looked at Hu Pa and said indifferently, "What is the second condition of the five god-level clans?" Hu Pa transmitted his voice to the sovereign. "Give the primordial heavenly treasure that Su Fong obtained in the chaos tide to the five god-level clans." The five god-level clans, other than the time mirage of the foreign race Daozu. You want the primordial heavenly treasure? Ha! The sovereign laughed loudly. Hu Pa said coldly, "Don't say that the Shishian Daozu took the primordial heavenly treasure. He went to the chaos outside to reach the immortal realm. That primordial heavenly treasure is incomplete and useless to him. It must still be in the Shishian mountain. Give me the time mirage and the primordial heavenly treasure, and I will let the Shishian mountain continue its inheritance. The deal is that simple." I think the five god-level clans will be disappointed. The Shishian mountain does not have the time mirage or the primordial heavenly treasure, the sovereign said coldly, completely dismissing the idea. The sovereign was speaking the truth. The primordial heavenly treasure was still in Su Fong's hands. Now that Su Fong's whereabouts were unknown, where could they find the primordial heavenly treasure? The truth of the Shishian Daozu's departure was that he did not leave behind the time mirage of the foreign race Daozu. Hu Po's eyes were cold. Does Lord Sovereign want the two supreme Xianbao treasures to be buried with the Shishian mountain? Won't the other races benefit in the end? The Yi race Dao Saint threatened. If the Shishian mountain does not agree to the five god-level clans' two conditions, Lord Sovereign, you must think carefully about the consequences. The first elder of punishment suddenly said, "Lord Sovereign, no matter how precious the treasure is, it is just a worldly possession. Why not take it out in exchange for the lives of 10,000 Shishian cultivators?" Chui Ning Peak Master also looked at the sovereign and said, "Lord Sovereign, please reconsider. I will say it again. The Shishian mountain does not have the time mirage or the primordial heavenly treasure. Everyone from Middle Mystic, please return. I will not see you off." The sovereign shouted coldly. Then his figure quickly turned into nothingness and disappeared without a trace. The other leaders of the Shishian mountain also disappeared. "You don't know what's good for you. Stubborn." Hu Pa snorted coldly. The Yi race Dao Saint asked, "The sovereign of the Shishian mountain would rather let the treasures be buried with the Shishian mountain than hand over the time mirage and the primordial heavenly treasure. What should we do?" "Don't worry. Those two supreme treasures will soon fall into the hands of the five god-level clans." Hu Pa smiled confidently and then left with the cultivators of the five god-level clans. Su Fong clearly sensed the scene above the Shishian mountain. The five god-level clans are so despicable. If there is a day, I will definitely exterminate the five god-level clans. Su Fong's killing intent was sharp. Chapter 3108. This time, Su Fong was very cautious. Facing a Daozu Peak powerhouse, how could he not be careful? In order not to be detected by the woman, Su Fong did not hesitate to consume his lifespan, continuously using the Heaven's secret life shrinking technique to conceal the presence of the Heaven's devourer insects. Fortunately, Su Fong had a large number of corpses of other powerhouses and could use the Heaven-piercing Blood King vine to continuously devour life energy to replenish Su Fong's consumption of life energy. Otherwise, Su Fong would not be able to endure. Moreover, Su Fong did not let the Heaven's devourer insects directly devour the treasure tree, but instead devour the essence of the tree. The devouring ability of the heavens devourer insects was extremely shocking. When they were still in gestation, they could already devour the spirit energy and world energy of the strange silence peak, causing one of the peaks of the Western Mystery Mountain to be completely destroyed. At this time, the heavens devourer insects had undergone several transformations, and their devouring ability had become even more shocking. Although this treasured tree was powerful and incomparably huge, its origin energy was only so much. The heavens devourer insects were extremely clever and only devoured the treasured tree's origin energy, leaving the rest untouched. Waves of pure origin energy were devoured by the heavens devourer insects, causing them to rapidly undergo astonishing changes. If not for Su Fang's deliberate suppression, the heavens devourer insect's body would have rapidly grown. The small silver spots on the heavens devourer insects also quietly underwent changes. The spots spread to the surroundings and finally joined together. Its entire body became silver gray, flickering with a heart-palpitating light, and its presence became even more terrifying. Su Fang was also constantly on guard, worried that the woman would notice. In fact, he was also very clear that he would be discovered sooner or later. He only hoped that he would not be discovered before destroying the treasured tree, or else all his previous efforts would be wasted. Time passed day by day. What Su Fang was worried about finally happened. Although he was very careful, the treasured tree's transformation was too great. Just how powerful was that woman? It was impossible for her to not notice. After the treasured tree lost a large amount of its origin energy, the green treasured tree turned yellow and looked as if it had withered. This abnormality caused the 12 treasured trees devouring of the Western Mystery Mountain's defensive formation to rapidly slow down. In the beginning, the precious tree Divine Mother thought that it was the Western Mysterious Mountain's cultivators playing tricks, so she didn't pay it any mind. There wasn't even a Daozu expert in the Western Mystery Mountain. What other methods could they use to shake the primordial heavenly treasure? However, as time passed, the treasure tree's origin began to show signs of drying up, and the treasure tree Divine Mother finally realized the severity of the problem. With the precious tree Divine Mother's power, no matter how secretive Su Fang was, and no matter how powerful the heavenly devouring insects were, they were still quickly discovered by her. Heaven-devouring insect. There are heavenly devouring insects in the Sichuan Mountains. The precious tree Divine Mother sensed the heavenly swallowing insect. She was surprised and shocked, and immediately exploded with anger. When the treasure tree reached the base of the formation, a thought flashed out and pounced on the heaven-devouring insect. We were discovered. Su Fang felt a chill in his heart. He had no choice but to face the wrath of a peak expert from Daozu. Without hesitation, Su Fang activated a rune talisman that he had hidden around the heavenly swallowing insect. Chi! The rune talisman burst out with a mysterious black and white xianguang, instantly enveloping the heavenly swallowing insect and the surrounding space. At this moment, Su Fang's will reverse the situation and controlled the fate of the heavenly secrets. Mediating destiny technique. It turned out that this rune talisman was created by Su Fang without hesitation, using his fate and lifespan, using the powerful mediating destiny technique. It was specifically used to protect his life. As the power of the mediating destiny technique erupted, the time around the heavenly swallowing insect began to flow backward. The heavenly swallowing insect's figure quickly became blurry, and then it began to change continuously, returning to the moment before the precious tree Divine Mother appeared. The precious tree Divine Mother's thought was blocked by the power of the heavenly Tao, and it began to retreat, returning to the state a few breaths ago. Time divine ability? No, that's not right. How could an ordinary time divine ability stop me? That is, the fate and heavenly secrets of a human race. The precious tree Divine Mother was not surprised. Her thoughts shifted, and a supreme divine power surged out, shattering the power of the mediating destiny technique. The peak experts of the Daozu were so powerful. Su Fang's mediating destiny technique was only able to block the precious tree, Divine Mother's, thought for an instant. However, the heavenly swallowing insect used this brief moment to burrow into the depths of the defensive formation of Xixian Mountain. When the heavenly swallowing insect touched the shackles in front of it, it would open its mouth and bite furiously. It quickly bit through the shackles at astounding speed. Chi chi chi. The precious tree Divine Mother was enraged and moved the treasure tree. A tree root broke through the layers of Jinji and chased after the heavenly swallowing insect. The defensive formation of Xixian Mountain had merged the power of the 1,080 peaks of Xixian and was extremely powerful. The precious tree Divine Mother's power was astounding, and the power of the primordial heavenly treasure was also astounding. The tree roots started to shatter, and the precious tree Divine Mother's thought was also restricted by layers of formations. Chi, seeing that the heavenly swallowing insect was about to break through the formation and enter the interior, the precious tree Divine Mother was enraged. She started to move the treasure tree with all her strength. The main root of the treasure tree tore through the Jinji and pounced at the heavenly swallowing insect like a divine dragon. Whoosh, a rune was spat out of the heavenly swallowing insect's mouth. In an instant, it turned into a golden light shield that covered its body. The defense of the light shield was truly astounding. It was comparable to the full power of the Daozu's defense. Calamity, averting talisman. At this critical moment, Su Fang did not hesitate to use the calamity, averting talisman. The main root of the treasure tree hit the rune and was bounced back. The heavenly swallowing insect finally broke through the defensive formation of Xixian Mountain and appeared inside the mountain. Whoosh, Su Fang immediately flew out of the heavenly swallowing insect's body and sucked it into the Dao Palace. The movement of the formation had already alerted many cultivators of Xixian Mountain. They thought that the foreign races had started to attack Xixian Mountain. Su Fang's figure was immediately seen by countless cultivators of Xixian Mountain. Su Fang, that's Su Fang. Su Fang is back. Impossible. How did he enter Xixian Mountain from the defensive formation? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One cultivator after another teleported towards Su Fang. Su Fang, is it really you? Weinstein's voice was filled with surprise. Then, with a flash of divine light, his figure appeared in front of Su Fang. Just as Su Fang was about to answer, the formation in the sky suddenly shook violently. Then, a tree root tore through the shackles of the formation like a tentacle and broke through the shackles of Xixian Mountain's defensive formation. Whoosh, a burst of green aura surged out from the roots, instantly condensing into a lush green leaf. This leaf was condensed from 100,000 thoughts of the treasured tree, Divine Mother. The damage to the treasured tree had clearly angered her. She wanted to kill Su Fang at all costs. Seal! The sovereign shouted angrily. His thoughts turned into a mountain and suppressed the leaf with the power to seal heaven and earth. A speck of light dares to compete with the sun and moon? The treasured tree Divine Mother's sneer came from the leaf. The leaf gently rolled and shattered the huge mountain. Boom, boom, boom. The sovereign controlled the formation and shackled the leaf. With the power of the formation, the treasured tree Divine Mother would not be able to escape in a short time. Su Fang's divine light changed, and he shouted at Wine Saint, "Run!" He was about to teleport away. The sentencing Grand Elder's voice was filled with killing intent. That is not Su Fang. It is a foreign race expert in disguise. Go suppress him. Wine Saint cursed. Sentencing Grand Elder, you are bullshitting. If this is not Su Fang, then who is it? If I say he is a foreign race, then he is a foreign race. The thought of the great elder of punishment flashed out from the void and transformed into a dark chain that swept towards Su Fang. Sentencing Grand Elder, what are you doing? Weinstein was furious. He did not care that his injuries were not healed yet. He opened his mouth and spat out a monstrous smell of alcohol that scattered the sentencing Grand Elder's thoughts. Weinstein was also sent flying. Whoosh, that leaf finally broke out of the formation, but it became dim. More than half of the treasured tree divine mother's 100,000 thoughts were shattered by the formation. Su Fang's figure quickly became blurry as he was about to teleport away. Who knew? A figure suddenly flashed out from behind Su Fang and shouted angrily, "Foreign race die! Chi, chi, chi!" Tens of thousands of thoughts transformed into sharp, dark spikes. Like a wave of arrows, they swept towards Su Fang, covering the sky and covering the earth. It seemed that they were about to swallow him whole. They did not expect Ning Chui Peak Master to suddenly make a move. The sentencing Grand Elder and Ning Chui Peak Master's intentions could not be more obvious. They wanted to kill Su Fang to prevent future trouble. Sentencing Grand Elder, Ning Chui Peak Master, you all deserve to die. Just as he was about to teleport, he was shot by countless spikes and was immediately interrupted. His body was pierced by the spikes like a sieve, and blood gushed out from his body. Those spikes were not only extremely sharp, they also contained poison that could numb the body and make it uncontrollable. Su Fang could not move at all. At this moment, the leaf quickly became 10,000 feet long and covered Su Fang's figure, about to wrap him up. The only thing Su Fang could do was to watch helplessly. Under the attack of a top expert from Daozu, even if he was restrained by the Western Mystery Mountains defensive formation, Su Fang was still as small as an ant and had no ability to resist. Su Fang, be careful. On the strange silence peak, Goddess Luo saw Su Fang's figure and let out a cry. I can't die. I still have so many family members to protect. How can I die so easily? Su Fang suddenly became spirited and was about to activate the longevity lamp, preparing to use his final trump card to escape. Suddenly, the leaf formed by the precious tree mother's thoughts paused and unexpectedly gave up on Su Fang. With a whoosh, it swept toward a peak at the edge of the Western Mystery Mountain. Su Fang was both surprised and happy. He teleported without hesitation and appeared above the main peak of the Western Mystery Mountain in an instant. Huff, Su Fang let out a long sigh of relief. However, when Su Fang saw that the leaf had swept up a figure from the peak, his divine light suddenly changed, and he charged toward the leaf again. It turned out that the leaf had swept up a cultivator. It was Goddess Luo. Chapter 3109. Screech. A snake-like root forcefully tore apart the Shixian defensive formation and reached out from the formation. Under the power of the formation, the root shattered layer by layer, but it still managed to wrap around the leaf. Stay here. Su Fang teleported over. It was mainly for Goddess Luo that Su Fang ignored the danger and returned to the Shixian mountain. Now, after narrowly escaping death, Goddess Luo was taken away. Su Fang's eyes were about to crack. Terrifying flames burned in his eyes as he charged towards the leaf without any regard for the consequences. Dai Yuan. The precious tree mother's cold voice that was like the heavenly Tao came from the green leaf. A terrifying intent turned into rays of green light that descended towards Su Fang. Boom, boom, boom. The green light directly attacked Su Fang's Tao heart, causing Su Fang's Tao heart to tremble, but it did not shatter. Su Fang's seven-colored Vajra Tao heart was already extremely sturdy. After fusing with the Ice Heart Flower and the Immortal Heavenly Heart Stone, even though he did not cultivate the Immortal Tao Heart, it was still shockingly powerful. The precious tree mother did not put Su Fang, a void Tao cultivator, in her eyes. A casual intent attack would not be able to shake Su Fang's Tao heart. Such a powerful Tao heart. I didn't think that the human race would have such a genius. Since geniuses are rare and this seat has found a successor, I don't want to kill anyone and will spare you this time. The precious tree mother's voice was filled with surprise and shock. Then, her intent entered the root and it disappeared from the formation with a whoosh. Goddess, if I didn't lead that foreign race expert to the Shixian mountain, Goddess wouldn't have been taken away. Su Fang's heart was filled with anger, regret, and conflict. The main reason he returned to the Shixian mountain was to save Goddess Luo. Who knew, after he successfully entered the Shixian mountain, Goddess Luo was taken away by a foreign race expert from the Daozu. How could he not be conflicted and fearful? Su Fang, It really is you? The sovereign's figure stepped out from the void. He looked at Su Fong with eyes full of joy. Wine Sage also flew back. He had not yet recovered from his serious injuries, and after the confrontation with the great Elder of Punishment just now, his injuries had been aggravated, and his aura was weak and listless. However, he was completely oblivious to his injuries. First, he looked at Su Fong in pleasant surprise. Then, as if realizing something, he let out a thunderous roar. "You idiot! The Western Black Mountain was about to be broken through by the foreign races. Why did you come back now? I am a disciple of the Shi Xian Daozu. The other races are attacking Shi Xian Mountain. How can I remain uninvolved?" Su Fong responded and suppressed the conflict inside. Jiao Zhongxing angrily said, "You stupid brat." The sovereign also sighed. "Su Fong, as long as you are alive, with your talent and potential, you might be able to continue the inheritance of the Shi Xian Mountain. Why are you so foolish now?" They were all deeply moved and impressed by Su Fong's resolute action. However, rationally, they felt that Su Fong's actions were not worth it. Wine Sage asked, "Su Fong, the one that the foreign race expert took away, was your little Dao companion?" Su Fong's expression dimmed. He nodded and said, "Yes." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The leaders of the Shi Xian Mountain all appeared in the air. The great Elder of Punishment and Ning Tsue Peak Master were among them. Seeing these two people, Su Fong's eyes seemed to be sealed in ice. Wine Sage secretly sent a message to Su Fong. "Su Fong, the great Elder of Punishment and Ning Tsue Peak Master are not weak. Do not be impulsive. Wait for your senior sect brother's strength to recover, and then I will help you vent this anger." The sovereign was also secretly advising Su Fong. "Su Fong, the Shi Xian Mountain is in danger. We need their support right now. This anger can only be endured for now." The great Elder of Punishment looked at Su Fong with an apologetic expression. "Su Fong, I was careless just now and mistook you for a foreign race expert. Please do not blame me." The Ning Tsue Peak Master also cupped her fists at Su Fong and said, "I was too nervous and mistakenly thought that a powerful enemy had arrived. That was why I attacked you. Please do not take it to heart. I apologize to you here." In Patian raised his eyebrows and shouted angrily, "You did it on purpose just now." The great Elder of Punishment said indifferently, "In Patian, how dare you slander me like this?" Su Fong's cold eyes swept over the great Elder of Punishment and Ning Tsue Peak Master. He said coldly, "You want to kill me, but you asked me not to take it to heart. If I kill you, will you not take it to heart?" The great Elder of Punishment shouted, "Su Fong, do not be presumptuous." The Ning Tsue Peak Master's expression darkened, and she snorted. "I said it was a misunderstanding, but you were so aggressive. You are really used to being arrogant and domineering. I'm not a little elder like Chen Tianqing. How can I allow you to slander me like this? Seeing that you have just returned to the Shi Xian Mountain, and your Taoist companion was taken away by a foreign race expert, I will not pursue your rudeness. If there's a next time," the sovereign raised his eyebrows. Just as he was about to speak, Su Fong's expression suddenly became ferocious. "There is no need to wait for the next time. What you owe me, Su Fong, I will take it back 10 times over." "You?" The Ning Tsue Peak Master sneered. "Yes, I will." Su Fong's figure flashed, and he pounced at the Ning Tsue Peak Master. "You overestimate yourself. I will teach you a lesson this time, so you don't know what death is." The Ning Tsue Peak Master's eyes were full of disdain. She released her mid-level Taoist saint cultivation and planned to severely injure Su Fong with one blow. On the heaven-chasing peak, Chun Tianqing saw this scene and sneered disdainfully. Su Fong has become more and more arrogant after these years. He dares to attack the Ning Tsue Peak Master. He is asking for humiliation. The great Elder of Punishment also sneered, waiting to see Su Fong being severely injured. Boom! Su Fong directly punched out. The blood-evil Dharma body exploded with monstrous killing intent and power. At the same time, Slaughter's heart was also rumbling like a heavenly drum. The Ning Tsue Peak Master's divine aura was instantly shattered layer by layer. Her body was like a leaf being swept away by a gust of wind. After being sent flying for thousands of miles, the Ningxue Peak Master barely stabilized her body. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Then her body began to shatter layer by layer. At the same time, the sound of her Taoist heart shattering came from her body. Su Feng, the Ningxue Peak Master, looked at Su Feng in disbelief. She had thought that he was a weakling and did not take him seriously at all. Never would he have thought that the weakling he expected was actually a terrifying beast. The Ningxue Peak Master's current mood was imaginable. The sovereign, sword supremacy, wine saint, and Yin Patian, who had planned to protect Su Feng, were all stunned when they sensed Su Feng's energy and his extremely powerful attack. They knew that he was no weaker than an expert of the middle realm of Dao Saint. The other giants of Shixian and the many cultivators of Shixian Mountain below were all dumbfounded. "Didn't you want to teach me a lesson?" Su Feng shouted with murderous intent. He stepped out and appeared less than 100 miles away from the Ningxue Peak Master. "You secretly colluded with Hu people and made me fall into the trap of the cultivators of Six Paths Heaven and the alien races. You wanted to use this to kill me. That punch just now is the interest of my revenge." Su Feng shouted domineeringly and punched out again. Boom! The Ningxue Peak Master was sent flying again and spat out a mouthful of blood. "This punch is the price you have to pay for attacking me sneakily and almost killing me." Su Feng was filled with murderous intent and anger. He stepped out again like a god of death and punched the Ningxue Peak Master's body. Boom! The Ningxue Peak Master's body was shattered and blood splattered everywhere. "Sovereign, first elder of punishments, save me!" Swoosh! Swoosh! The heavily injured Ningxue Peak Master abandoned her body and teleported her 7 Dharma bodies in all directions. Su Feng used the My Lord seal of 10 directions to seal all directions and instantly shackled the 7 Dharma bodies of the Ningxue Peak Master. The Ningxue Peak Master was also unlucky. Even if she lost to Su Feng with her full strength, she would not have lost so badly and completely. The main reason was that she had underestimated her opponent and thought that she could completely suppress Su Feng with her middle realm of divine saint cultivation. She did not expect Su Feng to be so powerful that it was beyond her imagination, and she was severely injured by Su Feng in the first place. In the end, the Ningxue Peak Master did not even have a chance to counterattack and was defeated by Su Feng. "Su Feng, I will fight you to the death." The Ningxue Peak Master started to burn her thoughts and Dharma bodies and wanted to fight Su Feng to the death. "It's too late to fight me to the death now," Su Feng said in a cold voice that was filled with killing intent and activated the Xian Bao's Rui Heavenly Dipper Wheel and the Cool Saber King. Chi! A cold light flashed. One of the Ningxue Peak Master's Dharma bodies had just activated countless black spikes and broke through the shackles of my master's 10 directions seal and rushed towards Su Feng like a tide. However, it was torn apart by the Cool Saber King. The saber radiance did not diminish and cut the Dharma body in half. The Rui Heavenly Dipper Wheel appeared above the Dharma body's head and was shackled by distorted divine power. It was directly sent to Su Feng. "If it wasn't for you, how could the Heavenly Lady be captured by the foreign race? For the Heavenly Lady, I will erase everything you have," Su Feng said murderously. A heaven-piercing blood king vine shot out from his palm and wrapped around the Dharma body and quickly devoured it. Boom, boom, boom. The Ningxue Peak Master lost her will to fight when 2 of her Dharma bodies were killed by Su Feng in an instant. How could she continue to fight Su Feng? She immediately burned her thoughts and Dharma bodies, as expected of a middle realm of divine saint cultivator. In a moment of desperation, she burned her thoughts and Dharma bodies and shattered the shackles of Su Feng's My Master's 10 Direction seal. Erased them all. Su Feng was like a killing god. He released Gui Gui, Tu Xiao, and that refined corpse from his body. At the same time, he also activated the blood coffin. Blood vines snaked out from his body. None of the remaining 5 Dharma bodies of the Ningxue Peak Master could escape. They were all killed by Su Fang. Even their physical bodies were devoured by the heaven-piercing Blood King vine. You killed your fellow disciples. I will execute you. The great elder of punishments was enraged. He brazenly attacked Su Fang. The 50,000 thoughts transformed into an old man in a black robe. The elder was formed by the great Tao. He held a book in one hand and a brush in the other. The book exuded a unique great Tao aura of life and death. The brush was dripping with blood. It was a ghastly sight. The elder waved the brush and wrote a big word on the book. Then the Xianguang flashed and flew towards Su Fang. Die. Chapter 31:10. It was Ningxue Peak Master who had pulled strings for the first elder of punishment to collude with the Hu people. Moreover, when she met with Hu Pa, Ningxue Peak Master had secretly communicated with Hu Pa and obtained Hu Po's promise that once the Western Mystery Mountain was breached by the foreign tribes, the Hu people would try to protect Ningxue Peak Master and the first elder of punishment. Now that Ningxue Peak Master was dead, the first elder of punishment's chances of survival had been cut off. How could he not be furious? Therefore, the first elder of punishment used his most powerful ability to kill Su Fang in one fell swoop. Boom! A chaotic Xian Guang surged out of Su Fang's body and condensed into a light wheel. The monstrous aura of death that enveloped Su Fang instantly collapsed. The primordial heavenly wheel. The heavenly devourer insects had devoured so many foreign tribe treasures that the primordial aura they spat out was naturally astonishing. Su Fang merged with the primordial aura, causing the primordial aura in Su Fang's Tao Palace to become pure and more condensed. Naturally, its power also multiplied. The moment the primordial heavenly wheel appeared, it immediately shattered the shackles and surged toward the bloody word death. After a series of collisions, the word death shattered layer by layer, and the primordial heavenly wheel also rapidly shattered. Su Fang was swept away by the shockwaves of the collision and flew back thousands of miles. The first elder of punishment did not expect that his all-out attack would fail to kill Su Fang. He did not even suffer a light injury. Amidst his surprise and shock, the first elder of punishment's killing intent became even stronger. Swoosh! Swoosh! Su Fang recalled the wishful heavenly wheel and the cool saber sovereign and circled above his head. Gue Gue, the refined corpse, and the foreign tribe expert Tu Xiu flew behind Su Fang. Heaven-piercing Blood King vines extended from Su Fang's body and waved wantonly. At this moment, Su Fang looked like a foreign tribe expert, exuding an evil, domineering, and lofty aura. First elder of punishment, what else can you do besides some tricks and sneak attacks? You're a great half-step Daozu. Why don't you dare to fight me head-on? Su Fang looked at the first elder of punishment and shouted domineeringly. Not only was there no fear on his face, but he was also full of fighting spirit. You used an evil and despicable method to kill Peak Master Ningxue. As the great elder of punishment, I must put you down. Being challenged and berated by a Tao Void Stage cultivator in public, the punishment Grand Elder was instantly enraged. The sovereign suddenly spoke in a dignified and cold voice. In your eyes, do you still have me, the sovereign of the Western Profound Mountain? Could it be that the Western Mystery Mountain is about to be destroyed, and all of you want to betray it? The head elder's heart trembled. Of course, he knew that the sovereign's words were directed at him. He let out a cold snort and teleported away. Su Fang's heart was boiling with killing intent, but he also knew that it was impossible for him to kill the punishment elder today. The great elder of punishments was a half-step Daozu. No matter how strong Su Fang was, he still couldn't shake him. Moreover, the great elder of punishments had a high position in the Western Profound Mountain. As long as he didn't betray the Western Profound Mountain, the sovereign wouldn't touch him. Su Fang could only give up on the idea and put Xian Bao, Tu Xiu, Refined Corpse, and Gue Gue into the Tao Palace. At this time, on the 1080th peak of the Western Profound Mountain, all the cultivators of the Western Profound Mountain were shocked. Countless people were exclaiming, He can kill a Tao saint at the upper stage of the Tao void stage. How did Su Fong cultivate? If he becomes a Tao saint, won't he be able to shake a Daozu expert? Our Western Mystery Mountain actually produced such a monstrous monster. If another million years passed, just how shocking would that be? Su Fong's current strength is probably below a half-step Daozu. No one could suppress him. Strong, too strong. Who would have thought? No one would have thought that after 100,000 years, Su Fong's cultivation would reach the upper stage of the Tao void stage. And his strength was so strong that he could kill the Ningsue Peak Master. Even the Great Elder of Punishments couldn't do anything to him. In addition to the powerful Xian Bao and his subordinates, he also had 3 powerful subordinates that were comparable to middle-stage Tao saints. Some people sighed and even snorted at Su Fong. No matter how strong Su Fong was, could he defeat the alien army? In the end, he would be destroyed along with the Western Profound Mountain. The peerless genius would also die prematurely. In time, Su Fong's future achievements will definitely surpass everyone. He might even become the peerless Daozu. Unfortunately, the alien race won't give him time to grow. The sovereign looked at Su Fong. His heart was in turmoil. At the same time, he felt pity for Su Fong. The wine saint and In Patian looked at Su Fong with gratified eyes, but at the same time, they felt a little ashamed. They were both disciples of the Western Profound Daozu. Su Fong's current strength was almost on par with the 2 Tao saints. The 2 of them had cultivated for a long time, but Su Fong had only cultivated for a short time. How could they not feel ashamed? Suddenly, the sword's sovereign pointed at the defensive formation in the sky and exclaimed in disbelief, "The formation has stopped losing power. The primordial heavenly treasure of the devouring formation has been taken back by the alien race expert." Everyone looked over. Just as the sword sovereign had said, the defensive formation of the Western Profound Mountain was no longer being devoured. Although it was not as stable as before, the terrifying formation had stopped losing power. Whoosh! Exclamations of exclamations erupted from the mountain peaks, as some cultivators cheered excitedly. Although the formation was no longer being devoured, it didn't mean that the Western Profound Mountain was safe. At least it could still hold on for a long time. At least it was a glimmer of hope in their despair. How could the cultivators of the Western Profound Mountain not be excited? The sovereign looked at Su Fong in disbelief. "Su Fong, it was you who stopped the alien race expert." Su Fong nodded and said, "I only destroyed one of the treasured trees." Perhaps the alien race expert was afraid that the primordial heavenly treasure would continue to be damaged, so he took it back. "I can finally take a breather." The wine saint took out a wine gourd and took a deep breath. Then he laughed loudly. Su Fong's original plan had finally been achieved. He was also very happy. But when he thought about how Goddess Luo had been taken away by the alien race Daozu, Su Fong's heart froze. At this time, the sovereign suddenly said, "Su Fong, you don't have to worry about your Tao companion." Su Fong asked in surprise why. The sovereign stroked his long beard and said with a smile, "You are too anxious. Think about it carefully. The Daozu tried to kill you with an intent attack, but you withstood it. What did the alien race Daozu say?" Su Fong thought about it carefully. His heart shook and his eyes lit up. The alien race Daozu said that because he found a successor, he didn't want to kill anyone. Could it be that he captured Goddess to take her as a successor? Unbelievable. No matter how he thought about it, it was unbelievable. That foreign race expert was a peerless existence at the peak of the Tao ancestor realm. He also possessed a primordial heavenly treasure. How high was Goddess Luo's cultivation level? She was also a human cultivator. Why would the alien race Daozu spend so much effort to take Goddess Luo as his successor? The wine saint laughed. "Su Fong, you're too worried. Think about it carefully. Why would the alien race Daozu capture your Tao companion for no reason? With that alien race woman's strength, not to mention Goddess Luo, even ordinary Tao saints would be able to kill her. It would be as easy as killing a group of ants. If she wanted to kill Goddess Luo, it would be easy. Why would she capture Goddess Luo? Even if his guess was wrong, Goddess Luo's life was definitely not in danger. Thinking about this, The heavy stone in Su Fang's heart was finally lifted. The sovereign looked at Su Fang and said, "Su Fang, come with me. I have something to discuss with you." Something to discuss? Su Fang was not surprised that the sovereign was so polite. He followed the sovereign to the main peak of the Western Mystery Mountain and entered the palace. Then he came to an independent space deep inside. It was Su Fang's first time coming to the sovereign's cave residence. He couldn't help but take a few more looks. The sovereign stood there and was silent for a long time. In the end, he sighed. Soon, all of this will be taken over by the alien race. Sigh. Su Fang's heart also sank. After thinking for a while, Su Fang said, "Senior Brother Sovereign, I have a way to prevent the Western Mystery Mountain from being completely destroyed." The sovereign's eyes lit up. "Speak." Outside the formation, I heard the sovereign talking with the cultivators of the 5 god races. They just want my primordial heavenly treasure. You are willing to hand over your primordial heavenly treasure? The sovereign was very surprised. Su Fang said confidently, "If the Western Mystery Mountain can keep its inheritance, what is the harm in taking out the primordial heavenly treasure?" Su Fang had already merged with the longevity lamp. Even if the 5 god races took it, it was useless. Su Fang would have a way to take it back in the future. The sovereign shook his head. "Even if you have the primordial heavenly treasure, the 5 god races won't agree without the time mirage from when the alien race Daozu failed to break through to the undying realm." Su Fang smiled. "Senior Brother Sovereign, that Hupi is right. Master left the Western Mystery Mountain because of that mirage. He went to the outer realm chaos to break through to a higher realm. But what Hoopa doesn't know is that I was the one who gave him the mirage." The sovereign's body shook. If another Void Dao realm cultivator said this to the sovereign would have slapped that cultivator. But how could Su Fang lie? Unbelievable. It was unbelievable. The sovereign looked Su Fang up and down. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. "Su Fang, I have to suspect that you are the reincarnation of an undying realm cultivator from another race. You actually did so many heaven-defying things." Su Fang smiled embarrassedly. "I was just lucky. Senior Brother Sovereign, can you make the deal with Hoopa now?" "Let me think." The sovereign closed his eyes and sank into deep thought. After 6 hours, the sovereign slowly opened his eyes and denied Su Fang's idea. "The 5 god races are greedy. Even if they get the primordial heavenly treasure and time mirage, they won't fulfill their promise. Those 10,000 Western Mystery Mountain cultivators will most likely become slaves of the 5 god races." After a pause, the sovereign continued, "If Hoopa knows you are in the Western Mystery Mountain, why would he let you leave alive? You are the true inheritance of the Western Mystery Mountain. As long as you are alive, the Western Mystery Mountain has hope. Even if all the cultivators in the Western Mystery Mountain die, they will not let you die. Then what should we do? Your idea has reminded me of something. I have an idea. You will know about it after I gather the upper echelons for a discussion.